addition, make sure any other thing.
Pronounce your name correctly. Because you're my left hand tonight.
He's filling some big shoes tonight.
Yes, he is.
I've done self-test. Anyone else?
Oh my God. I said, just give me a minute, let me get myself together here.
Things go on, right? You know, we always say.
This is the United Scholarship, so I head up their
What happens?
So what I do with my committee, I go through all the applications, I create a spreadsheet. It makes it much easier. I go through like all this kind of stuff.
You'll be so proud of me.
Of course.
Need some water?
Did someone leave a black purse in the other room?
Oh, I did, that's mine.
I was going to find
Did Jamie bring it to me?
Yeah, you did.
I left my purse in
Alright,
there.
that's where I knew her.
See, that's a real man, that's a real one. That's a real one right there. The video is not crazy. That's a real one.
Really want to trying, you know, it's hard. And that's why I have teachers and counselor on the
Yes, yeah.
Mostly for good.
Are we ready? No, we're waiting for Phyllis and Maria.
Maria's here.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. That's what, yeah, thank you.
Take your time, no rush. Ready, Allison? Phyllis, I want to wait for you to get ready and sit down.
I'm plugged in, I'm all done, thank you.
All right. Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to see all your faces at this time. The Montgomery Township Board of Education welcomes you. I'd like a motion to commence with facilitation of the public meeting session this evening.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Roll call, please. Assistant Board Secretary Palumbo.
Ms. Bursch,
Present.
Mr. Carlson,
Here.
Ms. Franco Herman,
Present.
Ms. Harris.
Here.
Her here, right?
Good.
Mr. Speck,
Here.
Ms. Spina,
Present.
Mr. Tuari,
That was in.
absent,
I think I heard him.
Mr. Todd,
Here.
and Dr. Spence Wallace.
Present.
We have a quorum.
We have a quorum. Thank you. Everyone, please rise for our flag salute tonight, April 26, 2022. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, on behalf of all the board members, Superintendent McLaughlin and her cabinet, we welcome all of you to our April 26, 2022 public meeting session this evening. We typically would hear first from our student, one of our or both student representatives, but it appears as if they are absent this evening. So we will move on and hear next from Superintendent McLaughlin, at which time that'll be followed by her introduction of the portrait of a graduate presentation, as well as the budget presentation conducted by our Director of Counseling Services, Corey Gaylord, and our, hi baby, and our Board Secretary, Alicia Shower, respectively. Superintendent McLaughlin?
So first up, we do have the public hearing of the 22-23 budget. So, Ms. Shower? Madam Chairman.
Hi, good evening. My name is Alicia Shower. I'm the School Business Administrator Board Secretary. I'm also under the weather, so I'm going to just kind of speak as slowly and clearly as possible. This is the public hearing on our 2022-2023 budget. A public hearing involves a give and take, a question and answer session from the community. It's the community and the board's opportunity to ask any questions related to this budget. I would just ask that if those questions, if you do have any questions, that you do pose them at the end of the presentation, as I'm not sure how much longer I will be sticking around to be in person. So thank you so much for coming this evening. When you start a budget, you rely on certain people that are integral to its success. And I want to give a great thanks to my amazing OFF committee that's chaired by Shrish Tawari. His insight in this process was indispensable. I thank Mr. Rich Specht, Ms. Cookie Franco-Herman, Mr. Marty Carlson, and don't forget Patrick Todd, our alternate, who was always ready to bat in case we had an absence. It truly is a group effort. We use this term collaboration in this district, and I'm very blessed to be able to tell you that this is the result of an amazing collaborative effort between our district employees, our principals, supervisors, teachers, administrators, and members of our community. So to those who came out on this rainy night, thank you so much. So when you build a budget, you have to think about different factors that go into that. This evening, we're going to talk about what those factors are. We're also going to talk a little bit about the budget development process. We're going to go into a little bit of what we call funds and what those funds' purposes are in the budget. We're going to discuss our enrollment trends and, of course, our sources of revenue. That's money that's coming into the district and what those sources are. We're going to talk about our proposed expenditures for the 22-23 school year. At the end, I will get to the tax impact of this budget on Montgomery residents as well as Rocky Hill residents. And at that point, I'd be happy to take any questions that the public has or that our Board of Education has on this budget. So these were some factors that we really struggled with this year when we put together our budget, as we do with every year. We're really restricted with our revenues. Our only source of revenues are really our tax levy, state aid, and federal grants. So I kind of use the acronym of a lemonade stand. You know, in private business, you can go out and sell more lemonade. We here in public education can't do that. We're dependent upon different funding sources that are stagnant and fixed. Here in Montgomery, we pride ourselves on student achievement. We want to make sure that we're giving all the resources available to our students so that they can achieve in the best manner possible. And SEL mental health learning loss is a concern this year due to the impact of the pandemic. Safety and security and COVID management is a big concern. Student transportation. This was a difficult budget to build for transportation just because of the fact of the bus driver shortage and the difficulty in getting qualified drivers who want to drive buses, and also with bus fuel, right? We all know what happens with our gas, how much that's increased. So I had to blend that into this budget. We obviously take a look at enrollment, class size. And the other area, let me take a breath here. The other area that was difficult for us was special education. Ms. McLaughlin, I understand we received almost 30 students into the 50 into the school district for special ed that were not part of our budget. So I had to blend that into this operating budget because those students are staying. Obviously, we have staffing, we have contracts, and we have employee benefits. When we get to a slide, you'll actually see the impact and the percentage of our budget that's involved with salaries and benefits. We offer different programs, technology and professional development that this budget supports, curriculum and instruction, supplies and equipment, and facilities and maintenance. So we have to do all this with a 2% limit on our tax levy. So the process begins in the fall. This year it began in September, when district staff worked together to determine what do we want in this budget? What are our goals? What's the driving force that we want to see? January and February, Ms. McLaughlin and I, the central office administration, we review the budget requests from those budget managers who have put forth what their requests are for that particular year. February, we preliminarily go through the requests at OFF, and we go through the numbers and we decide if that in fact hits all the ticks and balances that we wanted to do when we originally met in September. March 10th, our state aid notices came out, which this year was very late. Typically it comes at the end of February. So we were kind of on pins and needles to see where we were going to land on that. And if those of you joined us, March 11th was our tentative budget. Well, March 11th we shared that with the tentative budget with the OFF meeting. And then the next slide I think will show that on March 15th was when I was here at a public board meeting to discuss the proposed budget and where we were. So these next four bullets is what happened after that March 15th meeting. So that budget went to our county executive superintendent. Ms. Vanessa Davenport came back with a couple of comments and recommendations, particularly related to explanations and some lines, nothing number-oriented. We went back and forth for a while on the proper wording of our kindergarten referendum question, which we'll get to in a second. And we were pleased to say that they approved our budget. The statute requires us to physically advertise this budget in a newspaper. That was advertised actually on April 16th. That was 4 days early. And here we are tonight at our public hearing on April 26th. So what are funds? Well, we have different funds. We have a general fund, which we like to call our operating budget. Okay, it's quote unquote the pot, which is our Fund 10. We have a special revenue fund, which we call our Fund 20. And special revenue is made up of state, federal, and local grants. Grants such as IDEA, what else we get? ESEA, things along those lines. This year we were fortunate enough to get CARES funding, ESSER funding. Those are the type of things that we have in Fund 20. And Fund 40 is our debt service fund. So we have here in our community wonderful buildings. And in previous times, previous referendums were approved. And we have debt on those referendums that we pay off, just like you would a mortgage. It's exactly like a homeowner's mortgage.
This room is one.
Yeah. So obviously your budget, one of the factors is your enrollment. This just kind of gives you a 5-year snapshot of what our enrollment is looking like. It's not atypical to other Somerset County districts. In fact, it's not quite as steep as some have seen. We're kind of on a slow, I would say flat. I don't think it's statistically relevant. Maybe 18, 19 was a little higher. But. So where does our money come from? Where do these revenues come from? Well, we have our local tax levy. That's you folks. Contribute about $82 million to our tax levy. We have state aid this year that came in at $7.8 million, representing about 8% of our budget. We have fund balance and reserves, which we use and tap when we need them. And we have miscellaneous other revenues, building use, any type of shared services agreements we may have with other school districts or municipalities. So here are the numbers we have in this particular budget. We're looking at $82 million in local taxes, This year, we were fortunate enough to receive 7.8 million in state aid. Fund balance and reserves were 4.3, and miscellaneous and other, 953. So we were fortunate, the state came through for us this year. Here's your your debt service funds. Remember, this is our quote-unquote mortgage, right? And this is how we collect the money from you folks to pay our mortgage. The state does help us out a little bit, but it mostly comes from you, the public, and that's why when you vote for referendums, we try to limit our expenses and make it the best we can, bang for the buck for our citizens and our public. So this is the big one, right? Where does the money go? Well, this pretty much shows exactly where it goes. Salary and benefits. So we're at almost 60 million for salaries, and benefits were just shy of 20 million. So there, if I add 61 and 20, I get 81% of our budget is already spent before we even start due to increasing salaries and benefits. One would say our teachers are worth it, but it's really kind of an eye-opening when you realize how much little you have to quote-unquote play with. Ms. Spence-Wallace, did you have a question? I saw you. Maybe
No,
we did it at the end? Okay. And I did this one just for you. We sat and looked over the budget together, and Zelda asked that I do this, so I did it for her. So that really shows you the difference. That's exactly the data that was from the previous pie chart. It's the same numbers,
Right.
just in a different format. And this is by function. Function is an accounting term that tells you like which department that particular expense is coming from. And it's used mostly for state reporting and state data.
Again, the same, but just in a different mode.
So this is our general fund year over year, right? We like to see where we were, where we're going, and what percent increases we had to do here. You'll see our regular programmings were in really great shape. The area that I think our district struggled with this year was special education, as I had just previously mentioned. I do not think that that's unique to other districts in the state of New Jersey. It's a budget concern every year. Let's see, and buses it takes to drive. Capital outlay, we saw a slight increase, and that's just simply equipment purchases. So snow blowers, trucks, things like that, we call that Fund 12. And charter schools, I think we lost 2 students. Either they graduated or they came back into district, so that was good news for us. That's money that we keep here in our district for our kids. So our general fund increased 2.73%. So what does that mean for you folks? Well, here, if you're a resident of Montgomery Township, your assessed valuations this year increased by 1.06%. The school tax rate increased slightly, 1/16 of a penny. And what does that mean for the average assessed home in Montgomery? The average assessed home in Montgomery right now is $505,000, an increase of 0.43%, and that means that the tax impact in Montgomery will be approximately $133 on an average home assessed at $505,000. How about our friends in Rocky Hill? Well, Rocky Hill got a little, their assessed valuations significantly increased a lot. Rocky Hill increased by 4.67% year over year. The good news is that their school tax rate remained the same, so that helped them. But due to that large jump in the assessed valuation, the average assessed home in Rocky Hill is $488,000. Our Rocky Hill friends are looking at an approximate tax impact of $263 on our average assessed home. So I'm going to actually turn this over to Superintendent McLaughlin at this point. I just really wanted to just share with the public this important initiative that you're going to be hearing so much about in the months to come. As part of the fiscal year 23 budget and as part of this public hearing, we wanted to share with you that we will be going out to a public question in November of 2022 to offer full-day kindergarten for our students here in Montgomery. You'll notice that the question is two-part. We have been referring to it as A and B. Part A is asking for $1.6 million for full-day kindergarten to be comprised mostly of salaries, benefits, and other expenses related to the operations of basic skills, special education, counselors, paras, aides, and those types of things. And we are here to tell you that it will result in a permanent increase in the district's tax levy. So in other words, that 1.6, we're not just going to offer full-day kindergarten for 1 year, right? It's going to be an amazing program, and we're going to continue that as the years go by, so that becomes part of our tax base if the public approves it. Part B, and Mary will tell you more about our plans to move to the ECC building, but Part B is asking for a very modest $600,000 for upgrades to be made to the former Kid Connection building. Many of us who have been here in town long know it as Kid Connection. We're calling it the ECC now, Early Childhood Center. And the plan right now, as Superintendent McLaughlin will share with us, is to move our current pre-K program from Orchard Hill to this building. But we're asking the public for help in just bringing it a little bit up to speed. We need to paint it, we need some things done to it to make it as hospitable and as fabulous for our students as they deserve. So we wanted to share with you the actual language, and our board tonight will be voting on that public question. Let's see what else. So this is most of the language, and that slide, Mary, that we worked on together is right there. So at this point, I thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. McLaughlin. She can talk a little bit about our plans for full-day kindergarten. And at that time, I'll come back and answer any questions that they have on the budget. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Schauer.
Thank you.
So as we discussed at our last meeting in our budget presentation, we will be having a public question, as Ms. Schauer just said, November 8th, asking the community for full-day kindergarten for the Montgomery Township School District students. In addition to what we noted in the presentation, there are many benefits, which is here, and we presented this last meeting as well, for implementing full-day kindergarten. The National Association of School Psychologists notes the following advantages of full-day kindergarten: higher long-term achievement, higher achievement for disadvantaged and low-income children and for those receiving Title I services, higher reading scores in early grades, higher test scores, more time spent in individualized instruction, more time spent in free play, less time in large groups, greater progress in social skills for disadvantaged and low-income children, more reinforcement of positive social behaviors, higher self-esteem and independence, greater creativity, access to nutrition, a more relaxed, less hurried school day with more varied experiences. So through all the research, there is no apparent negative consequences in general to full-day kindergarten. So as Ms. Schauer explained, there's two parts to the question. One will be a forever commitment to our operating budget for full-day kindergarten, and the second one is for our current early childhood center to be, as the facility itself, to be refurbished and brought up to par to meet the needs of our youngest learners. So for those of you who do not know, who will be housed at the Early Childhood Center? Our plan is to, with full-day kindergarten, utilize the current preschool classrooms at Orchard Hill Elementary School for kindergarten, right? Just expand, have all of kindergarten, first and second grade in that building, in the main building. Then at the Early Childhood Center, which is a building just adjacent to Orchard Hill, it will house our preschool. So who attends our preschool? There are various children in the community who attend. We have 4 tuition, 3 and 4-year-olds, and we also have our preschool students with disabilities. So there's varied opportunities. There's self-contained classes for our preschool students with disabilities, and there's inclusion opportunities for our preschool students with disabilities. So we're trying to make the Early Childhood Center be welcoming to all of our students coming into our preschool programming. Over spring break, our facilities department has been working on making a model classroom for us. And so you will start seeing pictures of this once it's fully completed, to give you a picture as to the expectation that we have for all of the classrooms with the passing of the second part of the question, November 8th. So with that being said, if anybody has any questions regarding the budget or the question about full-day kindergarten, I think we're going to take those questions now.
I did also want to clarify that it's not a 1A, they're not 2 separate questions, it's one public question. So obviously we can't do B without A, right? We can't do A without B. So the public will be hitting one button, and hopefully that's a yes button. Are there any questions related to the budget that I can answer at this time? Yes?
When we talked about the budget, you used the term if it's passed. So one of the questions I have is, what if the budget isn't passed? Because I remember, probably when you first moved here, probably in the early 2000s, there was what?
It happened in 2005.
The budget didn't pass? So when the budget didn't pass, the board went ahead and just did whatever they were doing. And you do a question, it's like, if it didn't pass, then did our votes mean anything? But your question was, if it passed. So my question is, if it doesn't pass, what is the process? What is the procedure? Will this go on or will it stop?
Okay, that's a great question. We have to bring ourselves back to approximately 2015 when we had a governor named Christie in office, okay? He changed a lot of laws related to education, and one of the laws that he changed was that if a local school district keeps their tax increase at 2% or below, the public is not required to vote on a budget. It was sort of, I guess, I don't want to speak for the gentleman, but it was perhaps his way of containing costs. Now, a school district can exceed that 2%, but we have to ask you first as taxpayers. So if I, in theory, went to my board and I said, guys, we can't do 2%, I need 3%, I would have to ask the voters of Montgomery and Rocky Hill for that additional 1%, okay? So for this operating budget in fiscal 23, I don't have to do that. It represents a 2% budget. We were able as a collaborative group to get what we need with the 2%. Okay, now, public kindergarten question is a different story, okay? Because now, by asking for that additional 1.6 million, the math is easy, right? I'm going to exceed 2%. So we as a district have to come to you and say, please, we value this, we want this. Please, become informed, come out to the many meetings that we're going to be holding on the topic, and support us in this initiative. Now, if I don't want to talk about it, but if full-day kindergarten does not pass, it just kind of goes away because it's not part of that 2%. It cannot be part of that 2% until you, the taxpayer, approve it. Was that clear? Okay, great. Thank you. And I saw another question.
Just in general, we're talking with kindergarten. Has there been any basic assessment about will enrollment increase because of the amount of building going on within the town, especially at the younger ages like kindergarten? And if that $1.7 million number is today, what's it going to be in 3 years? Because it looks like the population in the town is only getting, especially with the younger ages, is growing dramatically with what's on the planning board and what's happening.
Do you want to cite the demographic study that we're doing?
Right, it didn't show much.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to speak. Yeah.
It was like 600 units planned. It's a crazy number.
Right, but then other grades moving forward will be less, so the staffing would be stagnant.
There are new people moving into town. There are new folks, brand new housing. happening
From
in
the-
town.
you want to speak?
I'll take it, yeah. Listen, I'll take the question, and then if Ms. McLaughlin.
But I do want to say this though. Right now, we have a lot of students, we can never guess how many first grade students we're going to have. Because like this year, we have 100 more first graders than we had kindergarten students last year. Because many parents will remain at, let's say, a daycare center that provides full day kindergarten. They don't want to have that inconsistency through their child's day with the half day program, especially working parents. So we usually get first grade what other districts have for kindergarten, right? Like a guess, right? Like a guesstimate. So this will help alleviate that. We will know out of the gate how many, kids we're going to have moving
So is that
through the program.
1.7 based on the current enrollment, or the additional 100 students that you can anticipate not staying a full day somewhere else?
So the 1.6 represents everything we need to staff a full-day kindergarten. So we'll
The
be,
current enrollment.
correct, yeah, yeah. I think in 2019, we did a demographic study, and surprisingly, a lot of the development that you're seeing, according to the demographer, will not severely impact our enrollment. And the reason that was cited in the study is primarily that a lot of them are two-bedroom units. And statistically, when you do the birth survival cohort, they take a look at three-bedroom units. Statistically, the three-bedroom units are what really drive your population.
Okay.
So I think we're okay. I think we're okay. Can I just pull on the gentleman first? I think you had your hand first.
Yeah. So have you explored the option of having a paid full-day kindergarten, right? So partial of the operating cost comes from the parents whose kids are coming in the full-day kindergarten, and then remaining can come from the community. So
Tuition based?
Sorry?
Are you saying like a tuition based?
Yeah, tuition basis.
Yeah, if we are a free public school, so we offer free kindergarten, so even if we called it something different, any kind of wraparound program that we would offer, we would have to offer free to all the students.
Okay.
I have a follow-up question, if you don't mind, to his question.
Sure.
The ECC facilities, are we assuming that that is going to accommodate all of the anticipated student enrollment in that program?
For preschool, yes,
Yeah. Okay.
yes.
Like what are the numbers? Are we saying that we're going to be at capacity, 90%? Just trying to think of future years, whether or not that facility is going to be able to accommodate growth over.
No, that is a great question. There are extra rooms right now based on the rooms that we're utilizing at Orchard Hill, moving over to that room. There'll be lots of space for the kids. We were even going to have related services come over there, so any occupational therapy, speech therapy would all be done in that building. Office space there, so there's definitely room to accommodate based on the last 10 years of our preschool program.
Okay.
Yes? Yeah? Okay. Any other questions? We've got a great group tonight. Great questions.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Any other
Outstanding
questions?
question.
Now the board has some questions.
Yeah, I'm sorry, he has one, the public has one more.
There's
I
one.
had two more questions. I have to look for one of them. One has to do with the budget. It seemed as though there was a reduction as it relates to bilingual instruction and education. Just curious as to the motivation for that.
I'd have to see the percentages on it, but it could be as simple as, a staffing member that wasn't needed particularly in that section. So it's, you're looking
Or
at
if
a
we had
decrease.
put, like, for example, if we have a new curriculum and we need curriculum writing time and also the resources to go with the new curriculum, that would have a spike one year in like one of our content areas, but then the next year it would look like it was a significant decrease because we're not buying textbooks this year, we're not buying the tests this year, we already purchased it last year. That could be the reason why I don't have the
Yeah, and
specifics right here. but I'm
statistically,
just
sir,
why
it's
up and
a
down.
drop of 29,000, which on a budget of 104 million is, it could be like, I didn't instead of 5 reams of paper, we order 3. I mean, it's kind of that type of level. If you're concerned about any types of changes in staffing or anything like that, I can safely say that the program will remain intact. There's no changes to the program. They just might have to order a few less pencils.
Yeah, if there was a reduction in focus in any way,
Yeah.
that's what we were looking for. And the last thing, as we talk about the full-day daycare, it doesn't...
Sorry, it's not full-day daycare,
Full-day
kindergarten.
Kindergarten, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, as it relates to that, what would be the impact, or have you guys done a projection on what would be the change in taxes?
That's a great question. That's a question that my superintendent has asked me. That's a question that my board president has asked me. And my answer to those 2 ladies is, let me get my budget passed. I have to approve this first before I have to hit that assessment first, right? And then I'll be able to build on this assessment. So that information will be forthcoming.
Okay, we look forward.
But you can sort of it's not a hard math, but if you have a budget of, what are we, 92 million, and we're asking for 1.6, it's going to be minimal. I believe it to be minimal. Everyone's definition of minimal, that's different. But that information will be forthcoming, and that's another great question.
About the chart, one of the questions I had.
Sure.
So when you were talking about charter schools, you had mentioned that you were happy that the students came back.
Yeah. So charter school is interesting, right?
So am I correct in understanding that if a student wants to go to a charter school, we have to give money to the charter school?
You are correct, ma'am.
So,
You are correct.
So,
That's the law.
oh, it is the law?
That's the law. That is the law, yes.
Okay. So
I have
that
seen-
could be
I have
a
seen-
on budget.
Yes, it is. And
Yes, it is.
I have seen some
No
schools
local
that.
education agency
Yeah.
enjoys
So in other
that.
words, with this
Law.
new curriculum that the governor wants to have with teaching the younger students about the sex education and health program, parents who aren't happy with that, they could then decide to try to get into charter
Well,
schools.
we have to be careful because, and I'm just going to say one sentence and I'm going to turn it over to Ms. McLaughlin. We have to be careful because charter schools are still considered public schools.
But they can take money away from the district if
Sure.
parents
Well,
apply to the
tuition. The state says this is what it costs for one child and we're going to take that away from you so we can pay a charter school. Our friends across the river, Franklin, our friends south of us, Princeton, we are very fortunate, very fortunate.
Do they pay the cost of the charter school, what it costs the charter school, or what the average cost is per student here in Montgomery?
The state tells us what it
Or the
is.
state hasn't, okay.
I was just going to say that
This is
charter
this is
schools
like the best
follow
class
the
I've had.
same rules that we do, so
Yeah.
that would,
You mean the state schools, the charter schools are the state,
yes.
they have to follow the same state.
It's a
mandate.
New
Yes.
Jersey. So a charter school is a New Jersey public school.
Yeah, they're publicly funded.
Okay.
Okay. I'll take any questions from the board. I mean, I don't know, you guys, you got a tough act to follow here.
I just had a simple
I take my
question
question back.
for
Yeah.
Secretary Showers. I had a simple question about the drop, if we can go back
Which slide?
with the differential. That's
Slide that the gentleman was
I was
asking
just
about.
curious, yes,
Right
I was
there?
just curious about the 4.31 deficit there for the administration. What do we
Okay.
attribute that to?
So, we have a term we call, when someone who leaves the district, perhaps at a higher salary, and you may hire somebody in their place of lower salary. So, I know, and, we've had some changes in that this school year.
Okay.
Yes,
So a couple of comments to what I've heard tonight. So one of the comments is the superintendent showed the benefits of having full-day kindergarten according to research, and the comments that the teachers have made about how it will prepare the students better. Another thing I would add is that there's roughly 670 school districts in the state of New Jersey. There are 20 that do not have full-day kindergarten. And we believe that Montgomery should be an educational leader, not an educational laggard. I think is one of the comments I would make. I'd also make a comment about the 2005 budget that was defeated. I think I heard a comment that nothing was done, and so things just went on as normal. That was, in fact, not at all the case, and if anybody wants to talk about that, I'd be happy to share things. There was a lot of discussion with the township, because that's when the budget
That was
is...
from your person who said that.
I'm sorry?
No, be careful.
What was it about?
I said that Governor Christie implemented a change in
But you know,
2015.
we're talking about 2000, not 2005, that would go away. You said if it wasn't passed, it would just go away.
I'm sorry, I thought I heard the woman say that she was referring to when the budget was defeated.
No, because it didn't have the clause that if it failed 3 times, you could pass it anyway at that point?
No.
Okay,
No,
so
whenever-
just for full clarity,
Yeah,
so
please do.
everybody's talking about the same thing. Up until, don't quote me on the year, but it was approximately 2015, up until that point, the public had to vote on their budget. It was mandated. Governor Christie comes in, changes many things, one of which is if you stay at 2% or below, you do not have to have the public vote and approve your budget. So your question, sir, is related to what year? Like,
I don't have a question.
oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
So I was just reacting
I just
to the
want to make sure we're all
comment.
good, you know, there's no
I had zero
misunderstanding.
question on it. I was just saying, it's,
Yeah. So my
no one
comment
here
was
said that.
strictly
That's what I
about history, the comment, so that's that.
I'm going to jump in. He was on the board then.
That's fine. We've got it covered. If anybody has any questions about that period, I'd be happy to discuss them.
After the meeting is adjourned.
Yes, yes.
So I thank
Wait,
everybody.
that's
Wait,
fine.
we have additional questions.
We do.
From the board.
Yeah, I do.
Board member
And I have to apologize, I have been away a bit, so I am missing some of the stuff. I haven't gotten it, so I'm probably asking questions that have already been asked. So I have to apologize about this. So it was, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, our superintendent was able to figure out how to pay for full-day kindergarten without increasing the budget. What has changed so that we have to now ask? We were initially just going to ask for facility changes. What has changed to make us now need to ask for a full-time additional money?
Well,
I have many other questions. Should I keep going?
I personally
Stop it.
cannot ask that question because I was not here 4 years ago. So I would need a basis for that. So respectfully, I can't answer that at this time.
All right, so this question is also asking that it would be in perpetuity, that this money would come in, right? So we're now voting for something over 2%. Do you know what percentage over 2% we are voting? And will we have to vote every year to have it increase each year, or we vote this 1 year and it's increased for the rest of the time, but it will always be at like 2.3% rather than 2%? How does that work?
So, you can, wait a minute.
So when approved, it becomes part of the base. So you could grow 2% every year off of the new base of the
It's a new
operating.
base, so we no longer have to worry about the 2%.
Correct.
Correct.
No, we do have to worry about the 2%, but it's not outside of that.
And it won't go up.
So rather than our budget being 96, it would then be almost close to 98,
If approved, yes.
if approved. Okay.
Which it will, right? Yes.
I had a question really about Rocky Hill. You said it was increased. I know Rocky Hill pays based on the number of students they have. Is this increasing because there are more students coming?
No, it primarily in this particular year, it was increased because of evaluations. It was increased primarily this year mostly because of the steep increase in their valuations.
Oh, the assessment in the house?
Yes.
Okay.
About the 600, the 600,000 based on what the gentleman said here. And if it's based on two bedrooms, what statistics? do
Wait,
we have?
hold on, stop, I lost you. 600,000?
600 units, 600.
New housing, oh, units, I thought
Whatever the number
dollars.
is, there's going to be a large increase in units, people moving in. And you said because they're 2 bedrooms, if there's a second, that's not going to really impact these numbers too much. Have we looked at Pike Run, for instance, and maybe some of these other units that are 2 bedrooms, and how many people actually live in them? Because I live in Pike Run, and I know that they are 2 bedrooms, and I always find it interesting. There's certain kinds of people that are.
So Yeah, I'm not a demographer. In fact, that's why many school districts hire professionals that do that. They do a cohort survival rate, they do a birth rate. There's a lot of different factors that go into it. What I can make available to the public is our most recent demographic study. I'd be happy to put that on the website.
So is that been factored into,
Yes, yes.
even though it says two bedrooms, it does not show?
It has been factored into this budget, yes. Any other questions from the board?
I have one more question. Do you know how much per person this is going to cost?
What's the budget or kindergarten?
No, the questions. Like if you're adding the one.
That was this gentleman's question. I want to get this approved first, figure out what my base is, and then build from that.
But we are voting on whether or not we do it.
That's correct. Any other questions?
Just a quick one, hopefully it's a simple one. So over the last couple of years, obviously due to COVID, we've had certain COVID costs that had to be, I guess, become line items. In your conversations with other PAs, do we see that becoming permanent in school budgets?
Well, many school districts were fortunate to receive ARP funding, also known as ESSER funding. There's a few acronyms that are floating around. We believe that funding will be completed. In other words, we believe that there will be no further funding coming from the state, and that brings us through about 2024. So yes, that has all been placed into our operating budget, particularly in that Fund 20, when I discussed our federal and state grants.
I'm sorry, I want to go back and just say I am a sinner. I live in Pike Run, and I live in a 2-bedroom, but it's a 1.5 residency in my household.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much, everybody. I will be attending the rest of the meeting remote because I'm not well, but you're in good hands with this Associate Business Secretary Dave Colombo on deck. Thank you.
One last question.
Yes.
I'm just curious, like those new units that are being built, and you said that we are already factored in the additional number of kids that will be entering our district. How many kids are we anticipating to
I don't think that's ever been quantified. I know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Budget for number of kids.
Because we're using the cohort survival rates that were determined in our most recent
Demographics
demographics
study in 2019.
As I recall, the demographic study did include an analysis of building permits that were filed for a
Correct.
number of buildings that are
Yeah.
under construction now.
Right, everything
and are
that's
still
under
in the
construction
pipeline, in
was
fact.
already in the works back when the demographic study was done.
Yeah, so it wasn't just a survivor or a.
Yeah, it's a whole big background. Like I said, I'm not a demographer, but this particular report takes into your birth death rates. It takes into a lot of different factors.
Maybe just explain what's a cohort survival rate.
So how many people, it's such a dismal topic, but how many people are born and how many people are no longer with us statistically?
For us to know how many new kids will be coming into our district, because that will impact the number of kids in the
Yes.
classroom, whether or not, they will have room in the lunchroom. I mean, there are a lot of different factors that will be impacting our communities. I'm just curious.
Yes,
The township.
We based it off of how many children we would anticipate off trends over the last.
Is it like 100 more kids, 200 more kids?
It's not that statistical.
With the units coming in?
Just if you have an estimate of the number of kids, I think that's the
So I think what we need to do is go back when we start to do our kindergarten meetings, to go back and take a look at what the projected numbers are, 10 years from now. I think that would be beneficial.
Ms. Schauer, are the
Yes.
estimates given to us by the township? Is that something, like how do we come up with, like based on the number of new apartments, houses, like who tells the district that these are
The demographic study that we had.
That and our past historical data.
Can I ask, does the Does this have to pass tonight for it to be able to go into the November election, or can this wait a month?
It cannot wait a month. This is statutorily required to be done.
I don't mean the budget, I mean the,
Oh, yes, it must be included as part of our fiscal 23
Yeah.
budget.
okay, thank you.
And I just wanted to clarify, so pre-pandemic, when we vetted out all the resources that we would need to have this occur in Montgomery Township, we were looking to see if we were able to do it without going to the public for extra monies, and we quickly realized that we could not, that we needed monies that were not available in our operating budget.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both.
Which one works here? I guess this one, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, before I introduce Mrs. Corey Gaylord, I just wanted to go over a couple of other events that are happening. So in addition to, as I mentioned earlier, our district leadership team is currently working on the project, determining how we're going to communicate the full-day kindergarten plan and implementation to all the various constituents. The planning was initiated in the fall of 2019, prior to the pandemic. We are now eager to form groups that will focus on specific constituents to provide information and answer questions regarding full-day kindergarten. So I'm going to jot down all the questions that were asked today and make sure that we answer those when we have our focus group meetings and communicate out to the constituents. I'm proud to announce that our Montgomery High School robotics team, 1403, won the Chairman's Award at the district championship. That allowed them, to attend Worlds in Houston, Texas last week during spring break. And into the next week. 24 students and 4 mentors attended the trip. It was a wonderful experience for our students, and we're so proud of their accomplishments. So congratulations to them, and we're going to have them come to the May meeting to be acknowledged. Yep. So for the first time in over 2 years, we once again will be hosting our District Visual Arts Extravaganza this Wednesday, so tomorrow night, from 7 to 9 at Montgomery High School. So works of art created by students from all the 5 schools will be on display. Please join us to see the incredible artwork the students have created this year. We're so happy to have it back. Doors will open at 7 and the exhibit closes at 9 p.m. So please come. As part of our labor management collaboration initiatives, we welcome delegates from South Africa to Montgomery High School and Village Elementary School yesterday, Monday, April 25th. This is an honor for our district and a tribute to the amazing work that happens here at Montgomery Township School District. During their visit, members of the delegation were presented with work that we were able to accomplish during the pandemic. We discussed our current projects and pre-pandemic projects. We were also joined by President Spence Wallace and Vice President Franco Herman of our Board of Education, thank you, and administrators from throughout the district. Some of our staff, including our board members, will be joining us tomorrow to see the delegation at Rutgers University as they debrief their the information that they learned and hopefully share out some ways that we can help them and support them moving forward. Now, Mrs. Corey Gaylord, our Director of Student and Academic Services, is here, and Counseling Services, is here to present Portrait of a Montgomery High School Graduate. Yes. Welcome, Ms. Gaylord.
Thank you. Thank you. And hello, everybody. Oh, wow. I didn't expect that. So welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here this evening. This presentation has been amended from previous presentations a little bit. It's been developed based on input from our stakeholders. So I think that's really important because we want to be able to present what is desired. So hopefully this goes along with that. Oh, wrong one. Nope. Oops, I got it. Okay. So going along with our Portrait of a Graduate, We want to look that our students are career and college ready, ethical and responsible, and socially and emotionally aware. Just keep that in mind. So here's a portrait, a snapshot of our graduating class of 2021. We had 423 students who graduated, and over 93% are continuing their education. I think that's really important to note. I will say that our community college enrollment has remained about the same. It did increase a little bit last year, and I think some of that was probably due to the pandemic. And last year also, we have some that were unknown what they were doing this year after graduation, and it was difficult because some students stayed virtual last year, so it was harder to capture everything. But we do really put forth a great effort to get all that information. And we rely on the students reporting. So when the students apply to college, we rely on them reporting to us where they were accepted and where they're attending. And they have to let us know where they're attending because we have to send transcripts. So that's really important. Okay. So here's a profile of our graduating classes of the last 5 years. I think it's really good to look at the longitudinal data. You can see that the numbers are fairly consistent. One area you will see that increased, I think, dramatically from last year to this year is the number of applications submitted. I'm going to get to that in a minute. We've been really working on that. You can see how a couple years ago the numbers dropped because we try to, as we speak with students, we want to encourage them, of course, to select some stretch schools, some reach schools, some safety schools, and really look for the best fit for them. And we were really working on them being more selective in where they were applying, to really think it through beforehand. I think, again, some of this is fueled by the pandemic, so you're seeing those blips. And as you see the average number of applications per student, you're going to see the percentage of acceptances drop. That the two, that they work hand in hand. I'll get back to that in a little bit. Let's take a look at our advanced placement courses. We have 20 AP courses offered in total. So over 600 students are taking at least one AP class in grades 10 through 12. The freshman class does not take AP classes. So I think there's a lot of students, 600 students. We administer over like 1,200 AP exams every single year. And that starts on Monday for 2 weeks. We're tied up with AP exams. So it's a lot of exams, but I will say, you can see our students do really well on their AP exams. Again, these numbers are fairly consistent. I do track all this information to see, and our students just do so well. We're very proud of them. So that gives you an idea of the Montgomery High School, state, and global. Okay, SAT. Okay, so SAT is math and evidence-based reading and writing. Each of those scores up to 800. They dropped the essay portion a couple of years ago. The SAT also has been altered. A couple of years ago, the SAT was started to be geared more towards what students were learning in the classroom, as opposed to those tricky questions we used to get. And so that, the analytical, part of that is it got closer actually to what the ACT is. Big difference between the ACT and the SAT is the ACT has a science portion. The SAT does not. SAT is still the test most taken by our students. Nationally, the two are pretty even. You'll see the ACT is more popular in different parts of the country. Okay, so again, our SAT scores are amazing. If you look at the mean SAT scores is 1,300. And they're, when they develop the scoring, they use 1,000 as like the base. So our students do really, really well. And New Jersey does really well. So that's the thing too, you have to take into account. I mean, yes. New Jersey does well, better than national, and we do way better than New Jersey. If we looked at, I know we looked at it a few years ago, we were one of the top schools in New Jersey for SAT. Okay, ACT. So ACT is an achievement test. measuring what student has learned in school. That's what they always, that's what they created the test for. So it's English, math, reading, and science. So like I said, the difference, big difference is science. Not as many of our students take the ACT, but again, our scores and the consistency, as you can see, our scores are great. Really great. I mean, the highest scores are 36. So, and these are the mean scores. National Merit Scholars, again, amazing. Every year, I'm just staggered by seeing this list come in. 2021, that is over 16% of our graduating class that was recognized. That's pretty amazing. And I looked at, we get the information about all the students recognized nationally, and our school just is incredible with the numbers that we have. And that is based on their PSAT scores. That's where that comes from. That they take, the PSAT that they take as juniors. Okay. All right, so here are the college applications per student, the number of applications. So you can see that the highest number, over 25% of the students, applied to between 11 and 15 schools. Nationally, the number of college applications are up substantially. Matter of fact, this is wreaking havoc with college admissions because the college applications are going up so much. So they can only accept so many, but their yields are going to, colleges depend on what they call yield. So say they accept 2,000 students, but they only figure 1,000 of them are going to accept that admission. Now those numbers are going to be way off because the students are applying to so many more colleges. So they're really struggling with this. It's changing how they have to think through things. So they have to recalibrate. And that's been I'm reading a lot about that. I'm reading a book right now about college ranking, very interesting. So a lot of information out there. All right, so counselors, very important. Counselors work with the student, with all the students on their college decisions. They work with them on a lot of things, but this is mostly about talking about the graduate. And they will support students. When students want to apply to college, they will support them. They will help them. They write every senior a letter of recommendation. That's part of their job. And they will walk students and their families through the college application process. They're here for that support. They're here to help. And they help both general and special education students. Okay, so these are the top 10 schools that our students applied to in the class of 2021. You can see that Rutgers is number 1. Interesting, Penn State used to be number 2. It's now switched with Northeastern. Northeastern has done a big publicity, really publicized themselves. So they've outpaced Northeastern. But the top 10, I would say, over the last 5 years or so, have remained pretty much the same. They might shift a little bit in their position, but they remain pretty much the same. And you can see here's over 5 years, and you're going to see the same names. I always like to give that longitudinal data because 1 year is only a snapshot, and it's important to get it in the bigger picture. So that's why I make sure to do it over 5 years. Okay. There were no college visits, specific in-person visits this year. They remain virtual, so I don't have any data on that because the colleges were the ones who were conducting that. So this next year, we hope to go back to in-person. I think it's really important for the students to be able to meet with admissions reps and ask their questions and to develop that connection. Because we've had kids really be able to develop that connection with the admissions reps. And that way they can call them when they have a question, and that really helps them along with the college process. And to see if the college is really for them. Counselors over time have visited so many colleges. That again was kind of on a hiatus for the last 2 years. But they're starting again to visit colleges. Different counselors are focusing on some unique programs, like one might focus on programs in the arts. I know a couple years ago, when I was down in Atlanta, I went to a couple of the historically black colleges, which I think is very important focus for us as well. So we're looking at that. And there are plans, the counselors are going to be starting to pick up on those. The colleges are starting to invite us again, because they were doing everything virtually as well. So they do sometimes invite us to visit their colleges. Okay. So this is, yes?
Did you wait to ask our questions?
You can ask a question now, I'm okay. Do you ready to go back?
Well, no, you don't have to. In terms of you said, the country is opening up, so we're moving back to in-person. Do you and your department facilitate college fairs here?
We do not do college fairs. We do individual meetings with college reps. We found a couple things with college fairs in my experience, because I've experienced them in other places. Very often they don't send admissions reps. They send alumni. So you're not getting someone actually from the admissions office. And it's kind of like speed dating. Whereas, we'll have a session with an admissions rep. We'll have it either, depending on the size of the crowd we can have it in a conference room, or we can have it in a lecture hall. And they actually get to hear from an admissions rep and talk to an admissions rep. And it's much more personal. And we've typically had like 130 reps, reps come to our school.
And in one of the previous slides, I was going to ask you, to what do you attribute, the significant spike in the number of schools that the students are
Uncertainty.
Uncertainty.
And the Common App.
Does the Common App?
And the Common App, absolutely.
Does the increase in the test optional schools, particularly with the pandemic, a number of schools, like the entire California
I'm going to get to that.
system. Okay, so
and I don't think that's impacting our students. I think it may be impacting students nationally.
Okay.
I don't think it's impacting our students, because that's not a factor that they weighed very heavily.
Okay. Thank you.
But you'll see that when we get to the information a little bit later. Okay, so this is old information, but I think it's still important to have it. I didn't want to take it out. All right, so now we're going to get to the part that I'm very proud of here, because we gathered stakeholder input. I would have liked more people to respond. There were not many responses. We sent out a survey to all MHS parents and students, but I do think that the information we got is representative. Based on what we knew anecdotally, I feel that the information that we received was representative of what our families are looking for. And so that's what I really am proud to present to you this evening. And I also value your input. If you have input, if there are things you see here and you want additional information, we're happy to provide it for you. That's what we want to do. We want to give you what you need to make informed decisions. Okay, so these are the responses by grade, parents on the top, students on the bottom. You can see that it was over half of the students who responded were seniors, so they were right in the thick of it. So that was it. That was probably important. Parents, it was mostly parents of juniors, followed by parents of sophomores, which I thought was interesting. Okay, so we asked a number of questions. So the first question we asked, what is most important as to where you apply to college? We asked the parents and the students the same questions. You can see that except for the little flip with best value and geographic location, parents thought best value was more important. Students thought geographic location more important. They were almost identical what they were saying. So I think that's very interesting. Again, this information that we gathered is helping to guide us in what we do. Some other things that parents said were important were the programs offered, a safe and healthy environment, a top education leading to a successful career, campus life, and housing. So those are some things that, because we had an option, they could pick something other as well. Students, other things that they added were academic focus, reputation for their major, the feel of campus, the fit, and of course, the dorms. That is so important. And those dorms are not like the dorms I had when I was in college. Oh boy, the college visits I go on, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. Where was this when I was in college? I was lucky I had air conditioning in my dorm. All right, so.
They get everything for free now.
Right?
Put my phone in the cage.
Next, the importance of where to actually attend. So first to apply, but then what's most important as to where you choose to attend. And here you started to see a little bit of a difference. I mean, the first few things were, funny thing that the students ranked financial aid higher than the parents. I thought that was very interesting. I am not surprised that it was more important to the parents the distance the children would be from home. The students, maybe that meant they wanted to be farther away, I don't know, but they didn't see that as important. But again, you see a lot of commonalities. There's only difference in a couple of areas. Other things that parents included when they had the option to add something were housing, location, costs, the departments and programs, and the best fit for student interests. The only other thing students added was academics, which that's a good thing. All right, the next question, who is responsible for making the decision where to attend? And again, very close, 2/3 joint decision between parent and guardian and the student. I think it's really, really important that they both said this independently. So, you get a little bit of difference in there. The parents think the students have more input, but I think that's really important that it's a joint decision because that's the way it should be. Okay, so next was, what is the most important information you need to make this decision? Okay, so here you're going to see a little bit, again, some similar, some a little bit different. It was what's needed beyond the transcript, financial aid and scholarships, what admissions is looking for, timelines for applications, importance of teacher and counselor recommendations, college visits, like when to go, what to ask, how to know where to apply, and how to complete an application. The process can be very, very overwhelming, the one parent wrote, so any information is helpful. So we want to be able to supply this information. That's why this was important to us to see what they needed, so we can offer that information. Okay, so things that the parents asked for, additional information from this survey. Now, can I click on any of these links with this? Do you know?
It looks and it appears the way it's presenting.
Yeah, but can I click on them?
Oh, no.
Do it from the computer.
I can't click on the links.
He's coming.
But
You need a mouse.
Mr. Palumbo. So I just want to give a couple examples. So parents asked about athletic information. So we do have that on the MHS counseling website. So if you can click on the NCA link, it will take you right to, because this presentation is going to be posted, right? So this way you'll be able to link to all this information. So here, playing sports in college, there's a presentation, there's eligibility rules, how to send your, so this information is right there for everybody. We want it there for you. Please make use of this website. We take a lot of time to put all this information on there. We want it accessible to you. Okay, can you go back, please? All right, so next was teaching parents more about applications and Naviance. So we do presentations for the juniors and the parents of juniors in January of every year. We go into the history classrooms for the juniors. And then we also do in September for the seniors and parents of seniors. We have a live webinar we do for the parents that they can ask questions, and then we post it. It's posted on the website. So can you click on that, please, David? Nope, that's not it. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened to that link. I had it linked properly. I checked, so I will. Oh, that's just to the general website. Maybe, you can go to that. Go to the counseling website. Take that back. But you have to go to, Yeah.
Guidance home, okay.
You want to go to guidance home?
Click on guidance home there.
I don't know why it went to the room assignments. Probably because that's the first thing listed. Okay, so there's our wonderful department. And if you could scroll down a little bit, that would be great. So we have our presentations on there that we've recorded because we've been doing these presentations now. We actually started doing presentations virtually prior to the pandemic. We didn't know a pandemic was coming, but we found that more people were attending, more people were accessing it, especially for the parents. To the students, we go to them, but for the parents, they need to come to us. So we will do the presentation like at lunchtime, and then live, and then we post it. So it's there for you to access anytime you want, 24/7. And there's some other things there as well. Okay, if you could go back, please. I'm not going to make you go to every link, okay? But I just wanted you to all see how much information we have there. So next, one other thing that was requested from the parents was about choices of classes at the high school. So we have a link to the program of studies, the current one as well as for next year. That is always posted on the website. How to find the best fit college. Meet with the counselor. Our counselors are very knowledgeable about the college process and about colleges. So that's very important to make that connection. And they can talk about what's most important to the student and the family. What's the student looking for? What's the family looking for? Very important. When the counselor understands that, they can help guide you to look at colleges you may not even think of. Very important. All right, another question was about college essays. Well, our senior English classes all work on the college essays. They do a personal narrative in the fall. It's infused into every level of the English curriculum. There's a college essay workshop offered in the SOAR program, in their summer program, every year. And the junior English classes, they introduce it at the end of the year. So that's really important too, because the college essay is a very important part of the application. It's an opportunity for the student to tell the college who they are. Very, very important piece. And counselors also will read over their essays if they're asked. They're happy to do that. How to get a good recommendation letter. Get to know the teachers. Get to know the counselor. Teachers, if it's especially in your area of interest. So say you want to major in engineering, get to know one of your math teachers really well, because they can write you a wonderful recommendation if they know you. So very, very important. Make those connections in high school. What else is beneficial to include in the application? We have a gentleman come in who's a former dean of admissions. He comes in every October and does a presentation called the Admissions Game. It's incredible. For anybody who has been to it, it's incredible. He is so knowledgeable, and he talks about the entire admissions, what the admissions offices are looking for. And it's really great presentation. Also, there's a question about colleges in the performing arts field. Like I said, talk to performing arts teachers and also the counselors. Like I said, counselors are looking at, some of them are looking at specific genre of colleges so they can better guide students. And they all discuss this with each other, so they help each other. Financial aid information. We have, every November, we have someone come in from HESA, which is the Higher Education, I have it written down, because I always forget what it stands for. All right. Oh, I didn't write it down. All right. Anyway, so we have a presentation on financial aid. We have a financial aid comparison worksheet posted on our website. That's to help when the packages come in, you can put the numbers in there, and you can compare what the actual cost is going to be to you of the college. We are going to host a Fafsa workshop also in November. I've already made the phone call. We're going to set that up so parents, if they have questions about filling out the FAFSA form, because to some it can seem overwhelming, we are going to have someone there to help with that. So that we're going to provide that service. I have also links to the FAFSA. FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid, and that needs to be filled. It really should be filled out by everybody, because you never know. So you never know what you can get. And then the College Scholarship Services, CSS profile. It's not required at all colleges. If there's a list on the CSS website of the colleges that do require it. So it's another application. It's used by colleges and scholarship programs that they award their own aid. Other questions were about transferring a gap year, path after college. So, so we added info about the gap year on the counseling website, so that's there as well. We don't have a lot of students who take advantage of that, but we have had some. Path after college, so beginning with our career exploration classes. I've been speaking with the person who supervises those classes. We are going to start to be bringing people in to those classes to talk about careers, possible careers. And can I tell a little story? Okay. So a little story. It's not one of my own kids, but this is why this is really important to me. So my younger son was in his AP chemistry class, and his AP chemistry teacher brought in people who worked in the field of chemistry. It is what lit that bulb for him that he wanted to be a chemical engineer. That is what made the difference for him. So if we start with our career exploration classes, start bringing people in. We've tried this in a variety of ways at the high school. We tried doing it like at lunchtime, and then kids decided they wanted to be social at lunch. So we started to get some, and then it kind of dwindled a little bit. So we figure if we can bring it into the classroom where they can see the real application of what they're learning in class, that would be really helpful. And then we try to expand it past that. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I got a question. Those students who chose gap years, have there been any trends or any specific reasons why they did that?
It's very rare that we don't have a lot of students that do it, so there really haven't been any trends. Like it might be 1 or 2 a year. Yeah, the numbers are very small.
Ms. Gaylord, I have a question.
Sure.
Do you also invite admissions from community colleges? Because that's
Yes.
also, okay, great.
Yes, we do.
For
RVCC,
students.
RVCC comes in, yeah. Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, they're terrific, actually. They're terrific, and they'll come in and they'll work the kids, and we even have some schools come in. I know Ryder's one. They'll do instant decision days. So yeah, the colleges work really well with us. Transferring between colleges, that would really be that was another question we had. That would really be a college decision. But I know some students have reached out to their counselors when they started at college and they're like, oh, this isn't really for me. They'll communicate with their counselor. The counselor's always going to help them, obviously. And then we provide the transcripts. We help however we can. And a lot of the counselors stay in touch with their students, which is really great. Okay, requested by students from the survey. They requested a packet or handbook for the application process. Actually, there are class pages and a Google Classroom for every class at the high school on the counseling website. You got to look at the web. There's so much on there. One student asked to be told earlier this senior year about the process. So as I said before, every January junior year, we go into all the history classes. So because all the juniors take US 2. And then the financial aid and scholarships, that's also on the counseling website, and in Naviance. Naviance is an excellent tool. We post all the scholarships that come to us from the outside. We post them on there. We also have something called United Scholarship. That was where I was all afternoon. We had scholarship interviews where students apply for a lot of local organizations that work with us and provide scholarships for our kids. So there's a lot available out there. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention. In January, not the last 2 years, didn't do it, but I do an alumni panel. So I have an alumni group that I'm in touch with, students who've graduated over the years. And I put out, for this year, we did a Zoom for an alumni panel. So I had 6 students ranging from a freshman at Rutgers to a student in med school, a student who's a software engineer for Apple. We had a wide range of students, and we had almost 90 of our current students on that Zoom. They could ask questions. And it's interesting because the graduates, they all say, number one, how well prepared they were for college, number one. Number two, they really say all the same things we say, but it's coming from students. So it's really important. So we used to host it in the media center. I found doing the Zoom was great because I didn't have to rely on when the college students were home on break. So we could do it a little bit later in January. We didn't have to do it like right after winter break. And it just worked so well, so I think we're going to try and continue doing it that way. What a great resource our graduates are as well. And what great they jumped right in and said, we want to do it. I've had couple students do it a couple of times. They love it. Okay. All right, so additional importance of activities and courses, the October presentation. Like I said, the former Dean of Admissions gives a lot of that information. Interview process, this is really important. In years past, before the pandemic, we would host an interview clinic for students. And I participated in that every year. It's a lot of fun, and hopefully we can revive this opportunity now that we're all back. There was another question about, so we have in Naviance, if you're not familiar with it, we have this thing called scattergrams, and it shows, you can go to any college, and you can see data on students who graduated from Montgomery High School, and it doesn't give any students' names, obviously, but what their GPA is and SAT scores, and if they were accepted or not. So some parents asked if we could include intended majors in Naviance in the scattergrams, and they can't do it. I called them to ask, and they can't do it. But it was a very good question. So it's something to think about going forward. And now I put the bug in their ear, so maybe it's something they can do going forward. All right, so some additional resources. I put out a quarterly newsletter from the counseling department at the high school. We have a presentation for sophomores that we do. It's called What's Coming Down the Road. Test optional came up before. Go to fairtest.org. You can see all of the colleges that are test optional. And as someone mentioned, or I think Zelda, you mentioned, California, the whole California state system not only went test optional, they are not even going to consider the tests, the SAT, ACT, in their college admissions process. New York State went all test optional. Question?
Is that in any way going to change?
I'm sorry? Is that going to change?
Is that in any way going to change the focus from the counselor's perspective on what they're recommending to the students, or even the focus in?
Well, so the thing is, it's up to, most of our students are still, I think, still taking the SAT or ACT. And part of that is, so if you look at more than 1,800 colleges do not require those scores, but sometimes scholarships are tied to those scores. In total honesty, total transparency, sometimes scholarships are tied to those test scores. So it really depends on the individual college, and that's something that you have to do your homework on the individual college to find out what part that plays. If it plays a part in admissions, if not, and if it plays a part in perhaps getting a scholarship opportunity. So it's going to vary greatly. But I think the fairtest.org is a great site. It can give you, for some students, there are a lot of students who don't test well, but they're great students. So why shouldn't they have the same opportunity? And there are many of those opportunities. And a lot of schools have said they're not going back. Only one college I know went back.
MIT.
MIT. Oh, well.
Well.
What can I say? All right, so my last slide, and this is something that this is one of my favorite slides. I started doing this a couple years ago. And this is what our graduates are doing. This is the students that I am in touch with who graduated, where they're working, where they have internships. Local owner of Fairgrown Farm are two brothers who graduated from the high school. That's pretty awesome. I think that's pretty awesome. And there's a link to Blue Bear's restaurant. You don't have to click on it, Mr. Palumbo, but it was on a Philadelphia news station. It's a local restaurant that hires some of our special needs students. You have to watch it. It's just so great. The kids are great. And I'm very proud of this, and I'm proud that I can present this every year. So thank you.
Held off, so I'll ask my questions now.
Sure.
Yes, so it was disappointing that you got so few survey results, because but it was great that you took that information and were proactive about it, And obviously from your presentation, you're proud of your department, and congratulations. That's a great.
They're a great bunch.
So question, so you listed the AP courses that we're offering. I believe the College Board has a bunch more than what we offer. Yeah. One of our board members works for the College Board, so that's, so the audience doesn't think we're just being flip here.
Right.
But are there courses that either we think we might want to add in the future, or are there courses that were popular at one time and or the test rather than the courses to prepare for it that aren't as popular that we probably wouldn't offer AP tests for?
Okay, so we haven't dropped any, like
Okay.
from what we've offered. I don't know, there's a possibility we may look at some new courses.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, you know, if that.
But you figure we already have over 600 students.
Yep.
There's only so much room
Yeah,
for.
and you've got good representation of different subjects
We
and
do.
things like that, so.
We do.
That's a human capital issue.
Yeah. So the other question I had is you listed all of the test results that we have and where we stand versus New Jersey or versus the US or globally. Does that information give us anything, and maybe this is a question for the superintendent, does it give us any information that helps us improve our educational program, you know, or if for example, one of the AP tests, we weren't where we thought we were, is that someplace where we might say, oh, we've got to take a look at why is this?
I have an answer for you.
Okay.
I have an example.
That's great. That's why
So that question was raised a few years ago about our AP English program.
Okay.
Because there's AP Literature and AP Language. And we only offered each one to one grade level. So one was grade 11, one was grade 12. We opened it up to both grades, both courses to both grades. Our enrollment has increased in AP English dramatically.
Okay.
Wow.
And that was a focus, and it worked. Like just by that little switch, just making it available to both grades, we've really increased it.
Okay.
And that's a class that's important. Like the colleges will look at that, like AP English, because you have to be a good writer, right? So.
Yeah,
Great. Thank you.
I wanted to just,
Yeah, I'm done.
I just wanted to add, I attended the New Jersey School Board Spring Symposium today, and one of the schools, I don't recall which one, but one of the advantages of COVID that they're using now is offering courses additionally online. I don't know how that works, but some schools apparently are trying that out.
Well, we're not offering courses online, but we do have an Option 2 program that students can take courses online, but it's offered by another.
Didn't mean to throw that to you, just learned it today.
That wouldn't be me. I would toss that one to the director of curriculum. All right, yes.
Yeah, I think a few years ago, like AP Chinese was offered. So my son, I did not Chinese.
We never offered the course.
Yeah, I know. But he was able to take that AP test in Montgomery High School.
3 years ago, we made the decision, based on our data, to only permit students who are taking a course at the high school to take the AP exam. And that was a decision made in conjunction with the superintendent.
Yeah, but they think in Chinese community, so people still wish that has to come back. So that do help. Yeah, I hope my son getting to MIT, so that's the one.
I appreciate your concern. Anything else?
He has a question. Quick question.
Yes.
I know there's a huge majority of the children that go to college. And I'm not sure if this is in your area, but there's some percentage of the kids that don't go to college right, for various reasons. What's done for them? Like what programs are offered to? Is it trade schools? Is RVCC has a ton of programs? Is it
RVCC has that list. RVCC has a ton of programs. You know, we work with each child individually. So their counselor or case manager, everybody, you know, they get that attention one-on-one. What are your plans for after after graduating from high
So they may
school.
not show up here, but there's stuff happening for them.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely,
Got it. Thank you.
absolutely.
But maybe Corey, that's a great question, because I wanted to ask that, if it would be possible to add that as a part of your presentation, if we know of students who go to trade school or do something different that's not the norm. I'd like to see that too.
Yeah, because we included military, we included RECC, there's really not too many
Sure.
left, but
Yeah.
yes, absolutely.
I
That's
was going
really
to say,
good thought.
the community college offers multiple types of programs, but two of the most popular ones is the transfer one, so children that would go there for 2 years and then transfer to a 4-year college, and then there's other ones that they would get a specific certification or have like an end game at the end of the 2 years if they did not want to go to 4 years
Right, like they
four-year
could
college.
get an LPN.
And they,
Yeah.
right, or paralegal.
Yep.
And they also have a program with the Somerset County Vocational and Technical High School. That's not high school, it's at the college level, so that if somebody decided after high school that they wanted to do any of the vocational programs, they could do it post-high school.
I wanted to,
Board Member Burge, you mind if Mr. Wilson, he was raising his hand.
I had my hand up a long time ago and I stopped and gave to other people, but go ahead. No, please, go ahead.
Ladies first. Ladies
No,
first.
please, go
Okay.
ahead.
So sort of along the same lines, do you identify students who would be like a first-generation college student? Forgive me if you already addressed this, came in a little late. I was a first-gen college student, and the whole process was bewildering to me. And I didn't need, I didn't have the schema, the background knowledge for anything about college.
Right.
So that one
do
student who
have that.
said, and
We do have that.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and the counselors, that's what the counselors are there for.
Okay.
They work, well, I look back, like when I was in high school, it was a long time ago, I mean, the counselors didn't get really involved in all that, but now that's a big part of their job.
Okay.
They meet with all, they can't make every student come down to their office, okay? But that is a big part of their job, their end of, second half is junior year, senior year, that's a huge piece of what they do.
Yeah, and then I'd just like to say quickly, where I grew up, we had the Eastern Center for Arts and Technology. It was a regional VOTEC school that the local districts decided we're going to create something for kids while they're in high school to be able to start either in the trades or IT.
We have
what
Somerset
you.
County VOTEC.
Somerset County VOTEC, okay.
Yep,
Yeah, we have every county.
yep.
I think it's every county.
Every
county.
Every county has
Thank you, Dr. Birch.
Okay.
I wanted to first thank you. You've done a lot of work to expand what you've had, at least in my 6 years of being here, even before that. So I really appreciate that, and you have been listening to us and asking. And like Cookie did, I had asked before about, and someone in the audience about people who weren't going to college, right? And I did appreciate you putting up Blue Bear's restaurant, that you are, I can see that you're working towards that, so I definitely do appreciate that. And it's
I include military service too.
yeah, you do too. And we talked before about the vocational schools too, and I think you're working on that as well. I wanted to ask you, and I wrote to you before, but one of my questions is, I know that Drexel and Rutgers are one of the higher, have one of the highest acceptance rates for us at Montgomery. Are there other schools that have those high acceptance rates too?
I'd
Or-
have to look at each individual
All right,
school.
so I was just wondering if you knew that. Also,
Penn State's pretty high too.
Penn State. The other thing I want to ask really was about the test scores, although it was more about, do you know the percentage of students who actually take supplemental courses, to do well on SATs and ACTs?
I don't.
All right, and
Because most of that, so we offer after school SAT, ACT prep for free. Not a lot of students avail themselves of it. I have no idea how many students go to any of the prep companies because that's not reported to us.
Okay.
And SOAR has it as well for the summer.
And,
Sure, that's
yeah.
Okay. And I was also wondering if you knew the average number of times that our students take tests, because I know there are some kids that will take it, until they get the perfect score, the other people.
Well, it's the recommendation is not to take it more than 3 times. because your scores won't improve. Your scores tend to not improve. But then you have to look at colleges. Some colleges super score, so they'll take your better. You take it 2 or 3 times, they'll take the better score from each. But that's up to the individual college as well.
All right, and a question I tend to ask is, if you were dreaming, what else could we do to help you? What else could you have that would make your department wonderful? More wonderful than it is.
I'd have to think about that one.
Well, okay, we'll come back to us.
I'll think about that because they're pretty awesome. And I mean, I have two counselors who do a lot of do our webinars. They're great with what do I call them? My videographers. They're amazing. They do that. Like everyone kind of has their specialty. And they just all work together so well. But I will definitely come up with something.
And then thank you for bringing Georgetown. I know you keep bringing them, so thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Corey, and thank you, Alicia, for that awesome information, really relevant, really comprehensive, and we really appreciate the diligence and that collaborative effort, and really appreciate how we're just evolving. And thank you so much to the community. It is such a pleasure to see you sitting here this evening. Speaking of which, so now we're going to move to new business from the board public. And I'll read the statement. Members of the public are allotted one opportunity to bring any new business to the board for up to a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker. All comments or questions must be directed to the board president. The Board of Education welcomes and encourages input from the public. There are 2 times during board meetings that the public is invited to speak. One time is now, where members of the public are invited to bring any new business to the board for up to a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker. Being repetitive. Later in the meeting, there'll be a second opportunity to address the board regarding the action agenda, and I believe we have copies there on the table to my left, your right. So before you make a comment, however, please state your name, address, and subject matter, being mindful of privacy rights regarding students and board employees, and to avoid any potential liability on the part of the speaker. The board discourages references to specific individuals. And while directing your comments or questions to the board president, please understand that the public comment portions of the meeting are not typically or advisedly structured in a question-answer session, but rather offered as opportunities for you to share your thoughts with the board. However, from time to time, we will provide responses and engage in an exchange nonetheless. So responses may be provided at the end of the session if that is the case. And there are times when comments and questions will require additional information gathering before response is provided. So Assistant Board Secretary Colombo, you want to begin? And the public comment is now open. And remember to sign the book there with your name as you approach the podium.
Yeah, my name is Xiaoyan Yang. I live in 21 Fort Court, Wyoming. So I come here to talk about my daughter being suspended since February 28th as of today. So it's over almost 2 months. So I think...
Can I invite you to call my office and we can have this discussion not in public regarding your child? I'm out of district tomorrow, but I will make myself available to meet with you and your husband on Thursday and or Friday, okay?
Yeah. The thing is, the instruction hour required by the state is 10. But right now, my daughter only been offered 6. So anyway, yeah, we can talk later.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Ms. Young, did you sign in on the book with you?
Yes, sign your name.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Paul Vecchione, 6 Matthews Farm Road, Bellevue, New Jersey. So the reason I'm here tonight, this may have been discussed at previous meetings, because I've seen a bunch of things between Facebook, newspaper, etc. In regards to what's happening with the New Jersey's comprehensive health and physical education standard that was revised and adopted by Governor Murphy of the state of New Jersey. What I want to understand is I guess one general statement is, and excuse me, I'm thinking about this topic, I'm outraged, but that's a whole other story. What I'm finding is that the state of New Jersey and school boards are completely overstepping their boundaries and the boundaries of what the parent-child relationship is. My concern is that what Governor Murphy passed in the state of New Jersey, they're trying to replace the parent, the guardian, the caregiver in regards to certain elements of sexual education, of sex education and health education. What I want to know is, what is Montgomery? What's the policy in Montgomery? When will this be adopted? What's the plan? Have we seen the curriculum? Have the parents seen the curriculum? Have they reviewed it? Governor Murphy came out about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and in many cases said, hey, and I have his quotes, I can read them. If anyone in the town opposes, you can opt out, or if it's a violation of what you think your child should be learning, it should be revised in the school district. Has that been addressed? I'm almost embarrassed to mention what these topics are and what they're going to ask. Like, I have a 5th grader, right? I look at what they want to discuss with my 5th grader. It's outrageous. Has anyone here read this? It is outrageous that I'm going to have, and excuse me, because there's women in the room, but this is in print. I'm going to have a 5th grade health education, a gym teacher, talking about masturbation to my 5th grader? Excuse me for using these words in front of women, but this is like crazy. What are we going to do as a school board, as a town, to say, Governor Murphy, this is not what we want? East Hanover already said they're going to condense it into a 45-minute period at the last day of school. That's their stance. I've yet to hear back from the board what our plan is. Now, I know a lot of teachers in this district, and I cannot imagine that they are on board with teaching this curriculum. I've been a coach of youth sports in this town for 15 years, from kindergarten to 8th grade. I know what these kids are like. I can't imagine. If I look at this, what a 2nd grader is going to learn, what an 8th grader is going to learn, this is crazy. So I ask each of you, have you read the curriculum? Have you looked at this in detail? What our children, what your children are going to be exposed to? And said, is this right? We have a chance to pause it. I'm not saying there shouldn't be education. I'm not naive that they're going to learn this stuff at some point in their lives. I get it. But they're so young in some of these topics. Let's review it. Let's take a step back and say, is this the right time for this curriculum? I think a lot of you are going to find it's not. But I don't think we've done that. Am I mistaken? Have we done that? As a town, as a school board, curriculum, health ed?
Thank you, Mr. Beckett. Is this the core of your?
Yeah, that's
Okay, thanks.
I'm not going to go through I can go through details. I know Governor Murphy said, hey, pause it, etc. as of last week. There's been a lot of activity on this topic.
There has been.
Tremendous activity. So that is the essence of my being here tonight. And it bothers me to the core about thinking about my 5th grader, what he would be exposed to in the classroom.
Right, exactly. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Superintendent McLaughlin, would you like to respond to that?
So we are all aware that there's been a lot of chatter and on the media, social media, in the news, and in conversations regarding the changes that are made to the health and PE curriculum for next year. So just a little background, the New Jersey Department of Education produces standards that schools need to achieve. They do not dictate our lesson plans. Social media sites are currently being flooded with sample lesson plans that are misconstrued as the new curriculum. So we do encourage everyone to read the standards that are going to be addressed at each grade level, so that they can extend conversations at home and ask questions to the school. These standards are currently accessible on the New Jersey Department of Education website. When exploring them, please notice that they're listed as grade bands. So for example, a standard in the 3rd to 5th grade band will not be taught in all grades. Our curriculum is currently under construction and will be updated by September 1st of this year, 2022. At that time, you will be able to see what standards are being covered by each grade level. In addition, in the next couple of weeks, our Instructional Services Department will be sending out a family-friendly information page to inform parents of the changes that will be occurring. So we are aware, we do know what's being floated around, and we are concerned with the reaction of the public, and we're hoping to ease everyone's concerns by having open forums for you to come to after we publish what our plan is.
So you'll publish it by September 1st?
No, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to give you a family-friendly,
Okay.
yeah,
So next time
version.
we'll know.
But the curriculum won't be completed until September. I'm sorry.
So if I understand it, then the next couple weeks you're going to give us, hey, here's what we're thinking about, here's what it's going to look like. You'll have it completed by September 1st. So if we
Well
oppose
before
it,
September 1st, before the
sorry?
end of this school year.
well, I guess I'm not understanding the timing.
The plan of what the new standards are, family-friendly, will be shared in the next couple of weeks.
Right.
The curriculum is usually written over the summertime, so that's why
Right.
we said September 1st.
So I guess my question is, if it's September 1st, when are you going to implement it?
It would be our new curriculum for next school
What if we
year.
oppose it?
Well, we'll have that discussion between,
But how can we look at the final curriculum? So you're gonna have roundtables, whatever you're gonna do, before September 1st to discuss that curriculum, what's in it. And then collectively, we'll say, here's the final curriculum. Like what I'm not understanding is, you're gonna have a final curriculum done for September 1st for implementation, right?
right, as per New Jersey's.
Who will have the input? Like, you're gonna give some general info about, I got all the general info about the guidelines, I can tell you what they are. That's all published on a million websites. What I wanna know is, who's gonna have the input in the actual curriculum for the town? Not what's on the general, who's gonna draft the curriculum?
Our teachers, our
Yeah,
staff.
and that's the problem. What about the input from the parents?
Regarding how we're going to implement the
No, the
standards.
actual curriculum. The content of that curriculum. Like, what I don't understand is, you're gonna have this final curriculum September 1st.
Right.
There's a bunch of stakeholders in the town that say, we don't agree with your curriculum. Here's our input. We know we know the standards as to what New Jersey say here, we got it in there, et cetera, right? If you say, we heard you, but the teachers are putting this together. Based on that final curriculum, we're not gonna see it before it's final, correct?
Well, the family-friendly standards going out that will help explain what's going to be
The
in the
family-friendly
curriculum.
standards I disagree with, and I think a lot of people in this town do. That's my point.
No,
When you look at the standards,
family-friendly standards are something that you are putting out
Yes.
in the next couple of weeks. You have not seen them yet.
are they gonna follow these guidelines?
Well,
They
they'll
have to.
follow the standards, but not how
Not how
We'll
how
follow
to
the
implement it.
standards, but
So
we
you're
will
gonna
be,
give us- so you're gonna give us a-
Paul.
Preliminary and a final.
Yeah.
And when you have to do something that's preliminary and final, the community needs to see the preliminary and final and have an opportunity to say, okay, that's final, we approve. I mean,
Or have an
where are
opt-out.
the parents?
You'll have an opt-out.
You're not clear on that.
There's always an
Yes,
opt-out.
and
For
I
health and
apologize, I
aid,
apologize.
there's
Well, maybe I'm
opt-out.
not asking the right question, I apologize.
Right.
So I think
Where will there be parental input during that curriculum when it's being drafted with the teachers?
So I think that after we do the family-friendly information page, we will have a forum for families.
And then from that forum, the teachers are gonna go back and sit down during the summer and draft the curriculum.
Yes.
That's
Okay.
correct.
And then when that curriculum is done, you're gonna post it for September 1st implementation.
Yes.
Yes.
What if we disagree with that final curriculum?
You can opt out.
So there'll be an opt-out, and so the school will clarify exactly when this will be taught, So do I get a reduction in my property taxes when I opt out? Do not get a classroom tax? I'm being facetious, I know. So, but what I'm saying is, you gotta clearly define when you're gonna teach this and how. This is a crazy.
And I think that's a fair question because we see on the agenda today a math curriculum that the district is choosing to vote on whether to adopt. The parents can go take a look at that curriculum online and see what kind of lessons are being taught. We can see a scope and sequence and make comment on that math curriculum. I think it's reasonable and fair to say that we should be able to likewise be able to review and make public comment on another curriculum that's being adopted.
It's a sensitive topic. More than that.
So I think there should be a one milestone between the final curriculum to get published and the family-friendly, the flyers that we are going to send across, to see that how that draft is getting created before the final course design. So that, like the gentleman said, right, you can vote and comment on that. So that milestone has to be introduced somewhere between the next 2 weeks and the September 1st.
So I think we understand your concern. We understand it both in terms of what the details are based upon the standards that have been put out and some of the things that you've read. We understand that. We understand that you want to have an opportunity to understand what that really means at not just a general level, but at a more specific level, to understand what topics are being discussed. True? Is that a fair statement?
Fair. I think it's collectively.
I'm just making sure I'm
that's right.
Understanding what you're saying. And I think it's part of the board's responsibility to take that input. The board has an academic curriculum and instruction committee that works with our instructional services department, which is the people that basically coordinate the curriculum and with the teachers and the curriculum writing. And so we understand that, and the board committee, I'm sure, will be discussing that at a future ACI meeting. I'm sure that they were going to do that anyway, but it's very helpful to have your concerns voiced. And I think it's going to be an iterative process.
I want to be sympathetic to the fact this was thrown on every Board of Ed in New Jersey.
Right.
Really unfair. It's a cop-out by Trenton, but that's the reality we're dealing with. And unfortunately, you guys have to pick up the pieces and deal with the town. So I want to be respectful that
Sure.
you guys are volunteers, elected, you're giving up family time to be here. So, I'd like to see more of a collaboration in this particular topic to say, hey, what's the right thing to do for, for the families of this
For
town.
these things.
Yeah.
And just to also be clear for it, make sure everybody, so there are the standards, but then there actually is the curriculum, which you've addressed, right? And so, it's, the standards are there, but then it's how are we implementing those as part of our curriculum? And so, we will be sensitive to that. And the superintendent's going to take this information, and the ACI committee will be discussing it.
So Mr. Vecchione, thank you for your commentary. And this is something that I've been processing not only as a parent and a grandparent of, young children, but also as an educator, right? Because I'm a central office administrator in another district in Union County, New Jersey, that's like twice the size of Montgomery Township. So I've been pondering about this, and while we don't take responsibility for the disinformation, thank you for your acknowledgement that this was sprung upon the public school districts and charter schools in New Jersey. So as educators, we're really cognizant about the content and its developmental appropriateness by age and grade, and we recognize like these intelligences of all of our children, and we will, juxtapose that with your sensibilities and with your expression, right? So we are aware, that the community has very passionate and strong feelings about this. So we know as a Board of Education, you know, that the standards in terms of procedurally, what our role is, right, in voting to approve this curriculum. And Montgomery Township is evolving and growing in its efforts of inviting, right, the public for your feedback and commentary. That's really important. It isn't required, but we recognize the type of community in which we live, so that also is what guides, you know. For example, the decision that Superintendent McLaughlin explained of putting together this informational packet, right? You know, demonstrating, you know, immediate responsiveness to all of us, you know, being caught off guard, if you will, by these standards changes. So you will have an opportunity preliminarily to provide your feedback, and we absolutely will seriously take that under advisement. And once the final curriculum is developed over the summer and that is posted, we will once again, before school begins, you know, provide a platform for you to examine, you know, the curriculum in this sex and gender education standards, and we'll make the appropriate and best decisions, you know, driven by what's best for students and appropriate for them, considering their grade level. So thank you for bringing this up. Do we have another public comment at this time?
And I just wanted to say something. The board is not approving the math curriculum this evening. It's the resources to implement the curriculum.
So,
Sure, yes, Board Member Carlson.
I was curious, so you're referring to obscenity in curricula or things they talk about that they're trying to educate the kids on, or both?
I'm sorry, can you
So are you, you know, because I've been thinking about this lately, and we talked about it
We
a little
have
today.
members, yes.
Are you concerned with the?
I'm sorry, can you put yourself, your
Speak to the
microphone
mic.
where you can-
Sorry.
Nobody at home will hear you.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now? Are you talking about obscenities within the curricula? I've seen some writing about that on the internet, or the sorts of things that are being taught, or a combination of both. I'm just trying to get
I'd
it.
say first off, I think Murphy and the schools are overstepping their boundaries, number one. And just that topic, the extensiveness of the topic, number one. Number two, the age at which they're introducing a lot of these topics, I think it's an inappropriate age for many of these topics, to start breaking down second grade, fifth grade, eighth grade, et cetera. I think it's inappropriate, the age there. Then you get into the language and some of the tutorials that they share that you can go to. So that, you know, that's what all over the internet we'll talk about that. But, you know, there's going to be some tutorial out there somewhere, right? But the way they make, you know, via cartoon, that some of these things seem more okay than others. So it's number one, the foundation of why they're doing it. You know, number two is the age at which it's being introduced. And then number three is, you know, start getting into that content. I do think some of that content is inappropriate. These kids are going to hit these words at some point, like you know, not idiots. But you know, there's a time when they should be introduced to some of this stuff more than others. I just think that, you know, the changes were put into a very small group that had their own agenda.
Yeah. The reason I ask that is because I'm trying to think of, you know, what we can do about that. We get the.
Well, I'll give you, for instance, at East Hanover, the superintendent said, we're going to adopt it, and we're going to teach everything in a 45-minute period the last day of school. And there was such an outrage in that town that I think they had like 300 people at the board meeting. It was a crazy number. So Murphy's already kind of taken a step back, and I can quote what he's saying, don't know all that stuff, but that's just rhetoric, right? It's just because he has it to make your, you know, he wants to be.
So if you had enough time, what, 45 or some number of days that you could review it and get back, would that settle this issue, do you think?
I'm sorry. I can't.
So if a curriculum came up, right, and then you guys, and the town scoured it, this I'm just sort of, you know, and then, yeah, had an opportunity to give feedback on it, that was seriously listened to it, would that solve the issue for you?
I think you want to see, yeah, what the appropriateness of those topics. And I do think if you did a survey about teachers, jeopardizing their jobs, about if they really wanted to teach that curriculum, I think most of them would say no. That's just my hunch.
I mean, by the second grade, do you feel it's necessary for our children to learn about their genitals? Right? I mean, at some point we have to ask ourselves that question. That's something that we do at our home with our children. We talk about these things, and not every second grader is ready for that level of conversation. If you're a third child, perhaps. If you're the first child, definitely not. So, I mean, this is not a curriculum that needs to be brought into school at that age. We already have options to opt our kids out at 5th and 6th grade, where we felt that the kids were not prepared, because I can tell you, boys are not as ready as girls are ready, right? So, and now we're shoving it down to first, second grades. That's completely inappropriate, and it doesn't belong in school. I'm sorry, this is a conversation between parents and their children. It doesn't need to be addressed as part of their children.
I don't know, I spend more time in classroom stuff, math, science, that stuff. Like, we're talking about full-day kindergarten because we want to get more classroom time for kindergartners. Well, this is definitely going to take away from classroom time when you start looking at this curriculum.
So it sounds like if you had some number of days that you could respond and get information back, that would make you happy and we didn't.
Well, the hardest part is that, I mean, this argument, we need to have in front of government workers. I mean, we didn't create any of this. This is the problem and
Right.
the frustration that we always have is we've been told what to do. Not only do we have to do it, we have to pay for it. They don't give us money to pay for this.
Without our input, so please know that after even consulting with some of my friends at the department, they recognize that they're, that this isn't a topic area that's agreeable. That is agreeable by many educators, many families, and the communities throughout the state. So there is review, by the department, Mr. Vecchione, that you mentioned, that is taking place. I know that, and help me out with this, Cookie, I know that Representative Tom Malinowski for the district with which Montgomery Township is located is conducting a virtual forum on Thursday, April 28th at 6 o'clock around this very topic. So, politically, this is a hot topic and they're very well aware. So, please, I caution, I appreciate your passion and your feedback, and thank you for acknowledging the role of the districts, because quite honestly, we just did not have one in the development of these new standards. It is a mandate from the state level, but quite frankly, please don't be surprised if there's some change, because the lobby opposing these standards is remarkably strong.
And Murphy did get a lot of latitude recently about districts adopting it, and that they saw fit.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, he did. If it was appropriate, it's appropriate or not appropriate. He's leaving that up to the district and the curriculum.
And we recognize that.
Yeah, so that's good news.
And as I stated earlier, we here in Montgomery Township recognize the developmental appropriateness of all of our content areas, including this topic here.
Could I add something onto the way?
Sure, Ms. Anderson.
Or do you want me to go up?
If you could please.
Sure, absolutely.
Remember to write your name, information.
I had anything to say, but I actually thought of something today. Sorry.
Oh, wait a minute. Ms. Anderson, there was a parent that was waiting.
I'm sorry.
Are you sure? Okay.
This is quick.
Thank you.
It's Karen Anderson, 926 King Court, Belmead. There was something I wanted my daughter to opt out of. I'm piggybacking off on this conversation.
Sure.
I wanted her, I was going through the process of determining whether or not to opt her out of something she's learning that was in health class for 9th grade. And after lengthy discussion with the wonderful teacher, she handled, I appreciate the way she handled the whole situation. But when I asked the process for opting out, my daughter would have had to have come into the classroom, have a discussion with the teacher, take a piece of paper or homework and then exit out. So this whole process sort of makes it look like, oh, she's in the class, but now she has to leave. So to me, that was uncomfortable. So if there's opting out options, if you could consider how not to make it obvious that someone's opting out.
What would that look like?
Yes. Hence, like doing something at the end of the year, like I think East Hanover, some other school is suggesting. Whoever shows up, and if you're not, it's the last day of school, and nobody's going to be thinking, oh, so-and-so's not here, or so who's here and who's not. I don't know if kids even think about that, but I just know my daughter is very conscious of not feeling like she's different or, you know.
Thank you for sharing that with
Thanks.
us. We appreciate that. Ma'am?
Good evening. My name is Joanna Fielek. I live on Coach Street in Skillman. So actually, I just want to continue with pretty much the same theme that we have been discussing today, which is there is a recommendation, there is a law, there is a mandate out there, and now how our district reacts to it and what exactly is happening with the information or recommendations that are coming our way. So there is a recommendation out there that if there is a child that has not been vaccinated, that child should be kept home when they travel out of state, or if there is a contact tracing, then they also have to stay home. It's only a recommendation. There is no law, there is no mandate, and we actually confirmed that by calling the New Jersey Department of Health, we called Department of Education, and we called MTSD. It's not a law, it's not enforceable by law. What our district does to our community, it divides students into two groups, vaccinated and unvaccinated. And I have friends who have kids who have been sent home, healthy kids, who have been sent home because they basically said by someone who tested positive for COVID, they never developed the symptoms, they've been always healthy, and the only reason why that happens is because they have not received the vaccination, and basically the policy right now and the ongoing, I don't know if it's weekly or bi-weekly email that is being sent out to everyone in our district makes it sound as there is some kind of authority to let students be sent home and deprived education. Well, there's really no pandemic. There is, again, no law that requires that type of treatment, but yet our kids are being banned from school and deprived education for 5 days each time, each incident. And some of those kids actually have been sent home more than once. So imagine the trauma that each kid has to go through when they come to school, they're healthy, happy, and then they are being pulled, and the parents need to pick them up because, oh, you're not vaccinated. Well, first of all, it's violation of privacy. Second of all, they are healthy, and they never develop the symptoms. So unless they are not symptomatic, I don't see a reason why we are treating them differently than vaccinated kids, especially when we know that vaccinated people also can get COVID and can spread COVID. So there is no really reason to discriminate between one group and another. While we discriminate against those unvaccinated kids and treat them differently, and we're causing them trauma, and they feel rejected, then they have those anxieties when they have to go back to school because like, oh my God, what if I sit next to someone who is tested positive, they will send me home again, and everybody will know. This is really not fair to the kids. And we know that all kids have right that is granted by the Bill of Rights, by the Constitution, to equal education, right? And those kids are not receiving that benefit. In New Jersey, there is actually a law that states that it's mandated for kids 6 to 16 to be at school. When we send those kids for no reason, they're healthy, we're basically violating that law because they are not at school, and we're promoting this chronic absenteeism, which is also a violation of the law. Then when those kids are being sent home, there is no equivalent program provided to them to stay in tune with the rest of the group, which is another violation of the right to equal education. Some of those kids, they stay for like 2 weeks because, well, first, they go on one trip with the parents outside the state. Then they come to school and then happen to sit next to someone who is traced.
I don't mean to interrupt, I just want to let you know you're just under 5 minutes.
Okay.
You can just wrap up and share any new information that you haven't already. Thank you.
Right. Well, so basically what I'm asking is either provide some kind of legal authority that this policy is based on, or stop basically discriminating unvaccinated kids and treat them differently because you're doing all the harm. Thank you.
Thank you.
And sorry for going over.
Did you sign your name?
Yes, I did.
Thank you so much. Any further public comments? None at this time?
I just,
Too late.
Just slid it down in the book.
You hesitate.
No hesitation.
We know.
All right. Christopher Wilson, Carriage Trail, about early literacy. This is new, I promise. But first, a super quick recap. My youngest child, who's now in 2nd grade, was given an IEP at his parents' request in preschool. In 1st grade, in the middle of the year, granted it was a pandemic, but I think that's not an excuse, he was given a nationally norm-referenced assessment for his early reading ability, and he was found to be in the bottom 1 percentile of all children in the United States of America. Luckily, my wife poked and prodded me to get into action, get into gear. We got him a tutor. He's now at the 50th and climbing percentile after 4 months of explicit evidence-based instruction. Now, his IEP has a classification, specific learning disability, which is insufficient because it really should state dyslexia. We did advocate for it to at least state characteristics of dyslexia, but we had to push for that. And so, a little bit more history. In 2012, the state had a reading disabilities task force. It was the impetus for the 3 dyslexia laws that our state has. The intent was to use the term dyslexia so that children with dyslexia get the specifically designed instruction that they need to make the kind of gains that my son did. However, in practice, that's not happening. In October of 2015, the United States Department of Education issued a Dear Colleague letter from the OSERS, Office of Special Education Rehabilitative Services, I believe, in which it stated to districts, you should use the term dyslexia. There's nothing preventing you from putting that in an IEP. They don't need a professional, psychological, psychiatric, medical evaluation. You should be using that term so that schools know what to do and they know what kind of instruction to provide. So the new thing I'm asking is that the board consider, write, and vote on a policy clarifying to the community that when a student has a specific learning disability with indicators of dyslexia, which is a difficulty with reading, word recognition, working memory, phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, and all the rest. And by the way, just going back a moment, that Reading Disabilities Task Force that issued its report, that Governor Christie put together the task force, and then 2 Democratic congressmen led that force. They found that 85% of all kids with a learning disability have specific learning disability. So it's very prevalent, it's a very common classification on an IEP. And of those kids, many of them have difficulties with language, with reading and with writing. So I'd ask the board to consider and vote upon a policy clarifying for the district that our practice should be in line with the United States Department of Education's Dear Colleague letter and the findings of the Reading Disabilities Task Force, that when a child is struggling with literacy and classified with specific learning disability, and they have those indicators of dyslexia, that we should write dyslexia into the IEP. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. All right, now we will move on to our committee and representative reports. It's at this time that we will hear from the UMS Vice President of MTEA, Ms. Karen Kevorkian, and she's going to deliver the MTEA report.
The 10 o'clock
for us this
MTEA.
evening. Oh my God!
10 o'clock news.
The 10 o'clock report. Here we go. Good evening, board members, administrators, members of the community, my colleagues.
Whoa.
I'm Karen Kevorkian. I'm the first vice president of the Montgomery Township Education Association, and I'm going to give the MTA report tonight. And I'm going to talk fast. So and hello to Jonas. Yes. On March 28th, Dr. Saul Rubenstein and Dr. Charles Heckscher from Rutgers University led a district-wide labor management collaboration training right here in the media center. We got a great deal of positive feedback. We had about 70 of our staff attend. We had all kinds of teachers, guidance counselors, paraprofessionals, support staff, administrators, and board members attend. Since many of the people who attended had not already received the formal training, we considered that session particularly helpful, as the more of us who understand labor management collaborative protocols, the more institutionalized it will become and not dependent on the actual people who were there at the time. Moving on to DLT, our district leadership team met last week. Dr. Rubenstein joined us, and he shared out the results of the survey that our district took a few months ago. Overall, we were very pleased with the results and how collaboration is viewed as an asset, especially during COVID. Soon he's going to share additional data with us so that we can unpack the results with more detail and determine how we can continue to improve our practice. The rest of the DLT meeting focused on supporting the district goal of implementing full-day kindergarten to better serve our youngest learners, and we look forward to working together to make this initiative successful. Also, thanks to an NJEA grant this past Friday, we were able to give out basil planters along with a reusable shopping bag to Montgomery families in honor of Earth Day. We have one more virtual family book series scheduled for May 16th, which is titled Preaching to the Chickens, read by UMS language arts teacher and my colleague, Wendy Wachtel, and all participants will receive a copy of the book when they're done. And finally, this is the exciting part. MTA cordially invites everyone from the community and the board and our staff to come out on Saturday and see our annual production of Music from the Heart, which was on a 2-year hiatus because of COVID, and we're back in business. So this year it's Shrek. Staff members from all of the buildings in the district have been busy rehearsing, building and painting sets and getting ready. You can buy your tickets online or check out Facebook. There are 2 shows on Saturday, one at 2 o'clock, 7:30 also, and 100% of the proceeds go towards scholarships for our seniors. So thank you very much. And good night.
Question, Karen?
Question from me, okay.
Do you have any idea how many years the MTEA has been doing Music from the Heart?
I think it started when my daughter was in 1st grade, and I think that would be 25 years ago.
Wow.
I think about, and it started as just a small, like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it started as a small thing and now it's grown.
Ginny
to-
Lucas started it,
Yeah,
yeah.
I had been, actually, I was participated in one of the performances
Love her.
back
More than
in the
25
early
years ago.
2000s, so, yeah, and it was pretty established by that point, so I just want to thank the MTEA, the people that are involved in
They
it,
work hard.
and, for what all it, because it does take a lot of work, and it's to benefit the children.
It
So,
is, 100%. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to ask the board members a show of hands, who has a delegate or liaison report to speak on this evening? Okay, great. So now we'll move on to our board committee reports. We've reached that part of our agenda finally. So I will begin with our assessment curriculum and instruction committee report. And as my colleague, Ms. Kevorkian stated, I will talk fast. So good evening again, everyone. And as usual, it is with great pleasure that I continue to serve on your behalf as the chair of the ACI committee. This year, the assistant superintendent, Damian Papa, is the co-chair. We virtually met on Wednesday, April 6th. At the beginning of the meeting, the Director of Equity, Data, and Accountability, Stacy Young, acknowledged that we are celebrating Deaf Awareness, Autism Acceptance, Arab American History, and Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And you may see those acknowledgments on the main page of the district's website. She also noted we will be contracting with High Tops, a Princeton social service and education agency, to facilitate related professional development to district stakeholders. Next, the K-5 math supervisor, Jessica Glover, reminded us that there are 2 requirements that drive curriculum, state standards and legislation. The K-3 math curriculum will transition from Math in Focus to Bridges. Professional development with West Windsor and Lawrence Public Schools will take place prior to the start of next school year. And implementation for the grades will be scaffolded. So then our dynamic counseling director, Corey Gaylord, presented her near final version at that time of the portrait of a graduate presentation that she so eloquently shared with us this evening. Thank you. And it was during this month's ACI meeting where board members and others provided feedback, resulting in the relevant edits that yielded her final product that we all saw. So thank you, Ms. Gaylord, for your continued commitment to the work. And it's a pleasure to have you on the team. And then finally, the Special Services Department announced that the RFP, request for proposal, to identify the department's outside auditor has been advertised. The end date was April 20th. With changes in the due process regulations, the department is working to complete review meetings with all students with an IEP. The board was advised that compensatory education is being provided to some students. And then reportedly, the staff were trained on addressing parent concerns as well. So germane to COVID, and while there's been an increase in the number of positive cases, Montgomery remains at a moderate level with the state's CALI, the COVID Activity Level Index. Mitigation efforts continue and contact tracing takes place as well. But the Superintendent McLaughlin will communicate and share your feedback with our Director of Special Services, who supervises all of the nurses in the district. And please recognize that these decisions and protocols and practices are fluid. So with your feedback, we'll definitely examine our current policies and make the appropriate modifications. Thank you to all the families who reached out to the school nurses for questions and travel related COVID guidelines, and we appreciate your diligence. And now we will hear from Board Member Bursch with a report on the equity.
Can I actually ask a question about ECI?
Sure.
Since it came up in the questions, did ACI actually discuss the issue of the new law on health?
You weren't aware
It wasn't,
April
it
6th.
was not aware.
It was released
Week
after
before,
April
yeah.
6th, so we haven't yet, but we will.
Thank
Let's
you.
have fresh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
That's all new with us, so please begin the report.
All right, so here we'll go with the
Thank you.
equity committee report. We met on the 21st, virtually as well. It was a preliminary meeting where we decided to complete the work that the ARRC began last year on. We are going to work on the HIB, code of conduct, punishment, suspensions, expulsions, and restorative justice. We will also work on academic equity, including achievement gaps. We decided to hold off on policies, although we started them at one point. We're going to hold off on those until probably next year. I don't know. We'll get to it before then. And our next meeting, Stacy Young, she's here. We'll give a report on the equity work throughout the district. And we will be meeting next Monday, May 9th. And it will be our first official meeting.
Awesome, thank you, Board Member Bursch. So, Board Member Spina, your report on ARRC?
Yes, so ARRC met on April 6th. We did a reading and discussion of an article on implicit bias and microaggressions. We talked a bit about beginning a delineation of what our goals will be within, going forward within its purpose within the equity committee, so as a subcommittee. We also talked about shifting the name of ARRSC to something else, and we'll be discussing that at our next meeting with input from all of the members, and how to be more inclusive of all of the very diverse identity groups of our community and continue with our community outreach. Our next meeting is May 11th. That would be a long day for some of us.
Can I also add that we took a test.
The blind spot test? Yeah, the implicit bias. We did do that as a group together, which is something that anyone can do. You can find I can look it up real quick and tell you the website where you can go take it, but go ahead and tell them whatever you wanted to include about that. That was just part of our study, but go ahead.
No, please, that would.
No, I want to know what you thought of it.
Well, I've taken them before, but it's just an interesting thing we were able to talk about it.
Yeah.
And then talk about, how the results are.
All right, great, thank you. So now we'll hear from Board Member Specht. He'll be delivering 2 reports, the Operations, Facilities, and Finance Committee, as well as the Policy and Communications Committee. Just want to
Okay.
remind you it's after 10.
Yes, okay.
For the record.
So the OFF committee, as was said earlier, discussed the fiscal year 23 budget. We spent time talking about that. We talked about changes that had been made as a result of refining things after the first draft and reaction from the county superintendent's office. We discussed some of the information going into the referendum question that was discussed tonight. We discussed the building use policy a little bit, and just as was said, rental of our facilities is one of the few revenue sources that we have, and so we were discussing some of the aspects of that. There was an update on food service, which I'm guessing that Ms. Franco Herman may be updating us on further, or not. I mean, no changes. And then finally, we reviewed the monthly financial reports and the agenda items that are up for action this evening that are financially related.
Thank you, Board Member Specht. Oh, that was OFM.
Yes, moving right along.
I was hopeful there.
Okay. Policy and Communications Committee met on April 7th. There were no changes to discuss in the items that are up for second reading tonight is agenda item 1.3.
Oh, that's right.
We reviewed the new policies that are listed for acceptance tonight under 1.2. Most of these are, as was said earlier, some of the policies that we adopt are in response to federal and state mandates, but we did make some minor changes to several of them. Finally, there is one of the policies on anti-hazing that we're going to continue to discuss at our next meeting based upon some further review on it, just to make sure that we're covering everything. We discussed communication in the full-day kindergarten program. Why are we doing it? What's the benefits of it? And how that's going to be communicated between now and the referendum itself. And we'll continue to provide updates on that as time goes on. And finally, the superintendent updated us on the assessment of our communications practices that is going to be delivered this coming month.
Awesome, thank you. And now we'll hear from First Vice President Franco Herman with our Human Resources Committee report.
Thank you. I will try to be quick. At our HRC meeting on April 5th, we discussed the recruitment and interview process for the Orchard Hill Vice Principal vacancy, and that process has already begun. The district had over 100 applications, which I personally think is a great indication of how our district is viewed by teachers and administrators who want to work for us. We are looking forward to the superintendent's recommendation in the next couple of weeks. We also discussed ways the state legislature is working to assist districts to recruit teachers due to the shortage. They are already allowing retired teachers and administrators to come back to teach with no effect to their pensions. And a program that just started would allow individuals who missed one or two items in getting their teaching certification to be able to teach again with the stipulation that districts provide support and resources for these new teachers. And lastly, Assistant Superintendent Mathis and I have been attending job fairs over the past couple of weeks. Thank you for having me join you. These job fairs are mainly a networking opportunity for us to see teachers out there and their qualifications, and also just to have conversations about best practices and, you know, kind of selling our school district. So that's it.
Quick comment.
Yes.
I want to thank you for attending those because, you know, I think it does add something if, just as we were talking about with colleges tonight and how people react to things, I think that people are coming and looking at Montgomery and coming to teach, having a board member there and being able to talk about why we do the things we do in our districts is very important, so thank you.
Thank you. As a board member and a parent, I can give both perspectives
That's right.
to these teachers too, so thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for that outstanding work. And we appreciate your commentary, board member Speck. So at this time, I will deliver you a brief officer's report. All right, so our first Vice President, Franco Herman, chairs the Food Services Ad Hoc Committee. She recently announced that our upper middle school Vice Principal, Mark McCarty, and parent volunteer, Yunani Patel, will present at next month's board meeting, sharing all about the Food Service Committee's experiences this year, as well as publicly inform us of the selected vendor for fiscal year 23. We're excited about that. And the RFP remains posted with the application due date of May 4th, Wednesday, May 4th. It was delightful to see parents and the board secretary and administrators, all of these stakeholders, you know, embracing our collaborative initiative and working collectively to engage with one another to address a district-wide concern. And shout out again to the community and the parents particularly for being, you know, courageous with your expressions and informing us about what was happening in the beginning of the school year with our food services program. And we really hope that you appreciate the swift action that followed, led by your voices, so thank you. The Special Services Ad Hoc Committee held its second meeting on Thursday, April 7th, and it was awesome. The two voted on topics of focus for this year, the IEP process and early grades literacy. Folks were broken into groups and jotted down thoughts, and they began to brainstorm and sharing out areas of concern. There was a video that we watched to prepare for the task during the meeting, presented by an organizational behaviorist, Simon Sinek, and it was well received by all the participants. So we're looking forward to continuing to dig deep and solve the problems of those areas. And then finally, the board and the MTEA negotiations teams are continuing to meet to reach a settlement agreement. The meetings are very productive and positive. The IBB, interest-based bargaining process, is working very well for both sides. And we've made significant progress on issues where we were once further apart. Our next meeting is scheduled for May 9th at 4:30, is that correct? Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Are there any questions at this time from the board members? We will move on. Thank you. So we have 2 meeting minutes for approval tonight, and I would like to advise all of us that the factual edits, I've been informed, were submitted. Yes, board members? So it's recommended that the Board of Education approve the minutes of the following board meetings.
Second.
March 15th, well, I didn't ask for the motion yet. The March 15th, we gotta get this on record, ladies and gentlemen. I'm eager to depart as well. Both on March 15th, the executive session and the business meeting. So I'd like a motion to approve those. Second. Great. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed or any abstentions? Great. I'd like to acknowledge the correspondence to the board. That was a 1-month streak of 0. It's a 1-month streak. There were 4, so thank you. And now we will commence with the second public comment. And these comments are specific to our action agenda. And the criteria and requests from the first public comment announcement is applicable here as well. Is there any second response?
I already got my name. Okay, Christopher Wilson, Carriage Trail again. Regarding the district goals. Social emotional learning includes trauma-informed practices. And I just want to share with you that a kindergartner or first grader that is struggling to learn to read knows it, they're aware of it. It's a daily trauma for those kids when they look around and see other kids being able to read. And they're not able to because they're not receiving effective instruction for the kind of learner and reader that they are and for what they need. So as you consider trauma-informed instruction and social emotional learning for our students, please consider supporting our teachers with training and resources that will help them to reach kids who are struggling to learn to read. Similarly, with Universal Design for Learning, I don't think you can UDL your way out of an ineffective practice or curriculum. I've stated previously that our units of study in reading, writing, and phonics curriculum is poorly rated by Ed reports. Regarding the personnel agenda, I ask that you consider, as you think about VP candidates, maybe ask your candidates why do they think some children struggle to learn to read. I think their answer would be really telling for what they know to be true about what constitutes effective reading instruction. And why kids struggle when they don't get it. And I would encourage you to not accept the candidacy of any VP candidate who doesn't support and understand the science of reading, the evidence base for structured literacy instruction that, again, so many of our students with learning disabilities need, and all of our students would benefit from. I ask that you consider, when you look at the renewal agenda, is the best path forward to have leadership who are openly and publicly dismissive or hostile to the science of reading? You know, it's training, it's about effective practice. It's not a program. I think teachers are better than any one program, a well-trained teacher. So why would we want to keep this knowledge from, you know, teachers when it comes to effective literacy instruction? In 1 year, you were able to solve the food services issue. I'm really grateful about that. I've been bringing up this issue for a year, and we're making progress. The district has, you know, done some important things, made some important steps, but I think there's more to do, and you know, I hope that we can get this, you know, solved as well. The last thing that I'll say is that, again, you know, I think that it's really important that we're all pulling in the same direction. You know, we in the last year, we've seen how important it is to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, not just because it's a law, but because it's the right thing to do. Similarly, children being able to read and not waiting until second grade when they're failing for them to get the kind of instruction that they need, I think is really important. I think our teachers deserve the training so they understand how to help kids, so they can actually implement UDL. I think that we really need to reconsider our curriculum and our biases about what constitutes effective reading instruction for all. And again, I just think that, you know, leadership, we all need to be pulling in the same direction, and I'm concerned right now that there are folks in leadership and curriculum who are openly dismissive or hostile to the science of reading, and are unwilling to, you know, really consider how it could benefit so many students in our classroom because they have a bias for the kind of instruction, the balanced literacy instruction that we currently do have, which, to be fair, is effective for a lot of kids, but, you know, I feel like I'm pleading every time I come up here. There shouldn't be any kids not reading. Kids should be able to read kindergarten, first grade. They should feel that they, you know, as they get into second grade, yes, I can read, I am a reader, and that's not happening right now. Because we are missing a piece in our practice, we have a blind spot when it comes to effective reading instruction. So please take these comments into account as you consider personnel and as you implement the district goals next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. I really enjoy, oh, go ahead. No, that's,
Anya Willicka-Jernigan, just Karen's Place in Belmead. I wanted to just follow up to a couple of items that we've been discussing over the last few months, particularly around curriculum. Last month we discussed specific books that some of the parents deemed a bit inappropriate for children. I was wondering if we've made any progress in regards to options for those books. That's my first question. And the second question is Start Strong testing that took place. We found out a lot of concerns for some parents in language arts or mathematics or science that kids have fallen behind quite a bit. And outside of, you know, Flex and after-school help, I haven't heard of any other program or plan that the school has to help these kids. And I'm sure you're aware that this week kids and next week and at the end of the month kids will be tested more to find out how far they're behind. I'm not, you know, I think I know the answer to those questions, so I'm just curious to hear, are we coming up with any solutions to address kids that have fallen that need additional assistance throughout the year to catch up? Thank you.
thank you. other comments? Okay, board, are we engaging in discussion or we're ready?
Are
to
you having
move
any
on?
responses? I guess I was hoping you would talk about the one thing that,
What's that, board member first?
sorry, that we have been talking about, was the last comment about, well, I guess both really, about the quality of education and improving for kids that are falling behind. So we definitely are talking with teachers about it.
Absolutely. These are conversations that are taking place. It's what drives really the thesis of all of our committee meetings with regard to responsibility of the board. And if I may share, hope I don't get in trouble, please forgive me, even during negotiations. And I think because we adopted the interest-based bargaining method, which has what we've experienced yielded, it shifted those conversations that are typically adversarial to there's more opportunity, right, for actual engagement and conversations actually about what's best and appropriate for children, and acknowledging that that's our purpose of being here. So there have been questions and commentary around what Board Member Bursch has brought up. What are the evidence-based best practices that we actually can design and work together and implement with a concern around those students that either have a pattern of having difficulty learning, particularly in reading, writing, and mathematics. And as a result of the pandemic, we recognize how incredibly important one's social and emotional learning, their mental health and awareness, how significant that is on one's academic performance in the classroom. So we absolutely are engaging in those conversations, and as a board, we're going to continue to challenge, the administrators here from Superintendent McLaughlin and her cabinet with identifying those types of programs and opportunities and the key part of this that is accessible, by all of those students, without barriers and challenges for them. All right?
I just wanted to say,
Yes.
wanted to thank Karen Gavardi, because I was thinking about this, and I can't remember Christopher's last name, when he was talking, and he needed to talk to Karen, and Karen got up and went right over to him and started talking to him, and I think that's just an indication of the caring, and interest of the teachers in this district. Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, I'd like a motion, please, to approve the action agenda items. I think it's 1.1 to 4.3.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Assistant Board Secretary Palumbo, roll call, please.
Mr. Todd,
Yes.
Ms. Franco-Herman,
Yes.
Ms. Bursch.
Okay, yes.
Get ready.
What?
Get ready.
Get ready. All right, so I vote yes, except on 3.6A, which I vote no, as well as, should I keep going, or do you need time to write?
Nope, I got it.
All right, as well as 3.11. I vote no on that as well.
Okay.
And sadly, I am abstaining on 4.1A4, I-14, and J1.
So that's 4.1, so 3.6A no, 3.11 no, 4.184 abstain, I-14 and J1 abstain.
A4, I-14. Okay. J. Great, thank you.
Mr. Carlson?
Yes, but, let's see, abstain on 1.1C, all except 228931, the one we talked about earlier, and I'll vote no on that, and I'll also abstain on 2.2.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Specht?
Yes.
Ms. Spina?
Yes.
Mr. Tuari?
So I think he's staying.
No, he left at 8:52.
Okay.
And Dr. Spence Wallace?
Oh, yes, and I'm abstaining on J1.
4.1.
4.1, J1. Thank you, Board Member Burge.
Motion passes.
All right, and that motion carries. Thank you, everyone. So, it's been an absolute delight this evening to serve all of you. The board, the superintendent, and her cabinet, we really are very appreciative of all your thoughtfulness and your patience and your commentary, continuing, as I repeatedly recognize, and holding us accountable to the oversight responsibility we have, within the district. And we thank you for your participation and the encouragement. We really do appreciate that. So we hope to see you at our board's first retreat. That will take place on Wednesday, May 11th, starting 12 p.m. here at this very location. And I'd be remiss if I did not acknowledge those who showed up tonight, including myself, who's feeling very much under the weather. But particularly for those others, your dedication to the work has not gone unnoticed. Second VP Todd, Board Secretary Shower, especially shout out to all of you. Oh, so and with that, happy belated birthday to Superintendent. Clap it up for her, everybody. And should there be no objections, I'd like a motion to adjourn our April 26, 2022 public session meeting.
So moved.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Outstanding. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.